Monday.
Monday. This week we have Corbin Clay on the podcast. He is
Country singer.
He's not a country singer.
Oh.
He started a furniture company called Azure. And if you guys aren't familiar with it, it basically solved a beetle kill pine issue that Colorado was facing and turned it into Scandinavian contemporary furniture.
He let the Beatles loose.
It's true.
But the more interesting story is how he grew that company from a side gig in a garage to a company that he was able, at one point, valued at $0 and was able to course correct that in 4 years and sell the company and retire at the age of 38 years old. And he walks us through exactly how he did that.
I'm thinking like right now, if in 4 years I could sell and retire, it seems like a quick amount of time. He turned things around quickly. Good for him.
This is the time.
The time is now.
With that being said,
I wouldn't retire.
You'd find something to do.
I would not sign anything that made sure I couldn't compete in the same market.
That's accurate. All right, let's get into it. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Love the durability of PVC moldings, but frustrated by the constant movement of PVC with changes in temperature? The answer is Duration Moulding, Millwork, and Siding. Duration is durable like PVC, but miter and butt joints stay tight so that your craftsmanship endures. No need to worry about the darkness of paint color or utilizing special paints either. Bottom line, Duration is easy to work with, installs and finishes quickly, and looks just like wood. And to learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. Well, Corbin, appreciate you being on, man. I know you and I have exchanged emails a few times, and I've restrained myself from asking too many questions because I know all of it is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into it, introduce yourself, who you are, what you started, things like that.
Sure. My name is Corbin Clay, and in 2009, I started the Azure Furniture Company here in Denver. We have 4 million acres of dead pine trees here in the Rocky Mountains due to this beetle infestation. And, entrepreneurialism 101, if there is a big demand for something and a product or service doesn't yet exist for that demand, if you can create one of those two things, you'll probably do pretty good. So I was running, my background's kitchen and bath. I did my apprenticeship at a custom kitchen shop, custom kitchen cabinet shop. That's an alliterative sentence, huh? And I was running a kitchen and bath shop in Boulder actually at the time. And we had a bunch of customers asking us, why don't you guys use beetle kill? And I didn't have a good answer for him. I thought for sure that it would warp, or, remember the, the wormy maple, you'd have, larvae hatching, they'd do the floors out of it and you'd have a worm crawling out years later because they didn't KD it properly, or who knows what, right? Like there's got to be something wrong with this.
You pay extra for that.
Hey man.
It's like tequila.
Yeah.
Get the worm.
Now, can you claim them as dependents? This was part of our marketing strategy. When the beetles crawl out, which they inevitably will, you can claim 5 to 7 million dependents now.
Yeah.
But no, so we did that. I worked with the forestry department at Colorado State University, and we had another big outbreak in the 80s. Same exact bug, same exact lodgepole and ponderosa pine trees. And they said, nope, absolutely nothing wrong with it. It changes the wood into a blue color, hence the name of the company, Azure. That's Latin for blue. And then, just realized that it got way bigger than I ever planned on it getting. I mean, by the end, we were furnishing, 100+ key hotels, full office buildings. At one point, we had 2 full production shifts. I'm looking into recruiting a COO to hand over the reins, and just like I'm a woodworker. You know what I mean? I'm a pretty good storyteller, and I'm a product, woodworker, and this has gotten way out of hand. So like, it's time to bring in a proper executive to run the company. So
Before you got there, you're
Yeah.
going back to being in the kitchen shop, the custom kitchen cabinet shop. That question came up when you were working there, right? When, hey, why don't you guys use beetle kill?
Yeah, so I knew nothing about it. I'm from Ohio, and I did my training in Florida. So when I came out, and honestly, Boulder's so gorgeous, I hadn't gone much further west. Boulder's maybe 50, 60 miles east of the Continental Divide out here.
Mhm.
And at the divide is where it's really bad. And just west of the divide, when you get closer to like Breckenridge, Granby area. And I had no idea. So it's actually a funny story. We were doing this kitchen, doing an install, and I looked up, and the ceiling was all T&G pine, but it had all these blue streaks in it. And I asked the contractor, the GC on the project, I was like, what is with this wood? Like, is it a finish you put on or something? And he goes, oh no, that's called beetle kill pine. You got to put a treatment on it so the beetles don't eat your ceiling. He's totally wrong. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. But I just come from Florida, so
Right.
there's lots of termites. So I went back and talked to my boss. I was like, what is the deal with these ceiling eating beetles? And she's like, what are you talking about? So that's where it all came from. And then, I was in a position to where that company actually closed. I picked up a second job for about the full year before, and I'd saved up a little money. And then back to that entrepreneurialism 101. If you can fill a demand, with something that doesn't exist yet, you'll probably do all right. And that's exactly what we did.
What specifically was that demand? Was it the use of the lumber, or was it a particular piece of furniture?
No, it was why is nobody doing anything with this wood? Why aren't we making toothpicks out of it? Paper, pencils, furniture, obviously. Why isn't there some rule that says 30% of all new construction should be, of beetle kill pine? And
what was the reason when people would ask, why weren't people using it?
I think honestly, it's a lot of just kind of laziness and apathy in the industry, unfortunately. I mean, you guys know how hard it is to change a process or a procedure. Who uses softwood anymore in furniture, especially in America? Colorado's milling industry is completely gone. So we never once used KD. It was all air dried. But got to use KD, can't do it. It's like, well, 9% moisture is 9% moisture. On a macro level, it doesn't necessarily matter how you get to that 9%. It's just we're used to stuffing it into a kiln for 2 weeks and microwaving it, right? But we don't have that out here anymore. So I think it was just a lot of stigma around it. Oh, it's gonna warp. Pine sucks. No one wants pine. This is when walnut is going crazy. 8-12 years ago. I never really got a good answer to that question, because I always wondered, like, why is no one else doing this? I can't be the only one that sees this.
Mm-hmm.
And
what were they doing? What were they doing with it? Just chipping it and getting rid of it, or?
For the most part, yeah, they just kind of let it go. I mean, if you drive, as soon as you get west of the tunnel at the divide, it's nothing but gray. I mean, every tree is dead, because what happened was, this is what the Forest Service says. Back in the early 1900s, Industrial Revolution, we cut down like every tree in the forest to build shit with, right? And we replanted trees, but there's basically no age diversity in that part of the forest. Like within a close proximity to the railroad, and now where I-70 is. So you need age diversity. So now all the trees in the forest are just old and weak. And these beetles have always been around, but now our winters aren't as cold. So they need two back-to-back weeks of sub-zero temperatures to die off. And they used to every year. Well, now we rarely get 2 weeks, consecutive weeks of sub-zero temperatures. So now the beetles aren't dying off like they used to. And you also couple in this issue with not a lot of age diversity in the forest. So now all the trees, or at least a significant majority of the trees, are old and weak. They have no way to fight themselves off thus the perfect storm, 4 million acres. So yeah, I know that, like, you know, the trees that were close to campgrounds and ski resorts and, you know, more like tourist areas, they'd have to cut them down because they call them widow makers, to where they'll just fall, and they've killed people. You know, Granby had several deaths one summer of beetle kill trees getting knocked over, you know, and smashing a campsite in the middle of the night or who knows what. So no, a lot of them are still there. I think we personally used up most of the accessible trees. We milled over 1 million lineal feet of it in my time at Azure.
Wow.
So yeah, to answer your question, brevity is not a strength of mine. So I hope that I hope that you guys are staying on track, because we'll get in 10 tangents if you just let me go.
It's usually what happens anyway, so that's perfect.
Great. But I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. And it's, you know, so if I'm following along, you basically saw an opportunity to utilize this stuff. And being a woodworker, as you said, why don't I make furniture out of it? Is that right?
Right. I only ever want to invest in things that I have an unfair advantage. If I have this idea that there should be furniture made out of beetle kill pine, but I'm not a woodworker, I don't want to walk down that path, because right off the bat, I'll need a technical co-founder and all this other stuff. So yeah, it was just kind of one of those, you know, timing is everything, right? In entrepreneurialism and business. And when I incorporated the company, so the funny reason that I actually started a company in the first was part of my compensation at the kitchen shop that I was running was that I could use the shop to do personal projects, and if somebody wanted to pay me for them, every now and again I could build something. So these 2 bookshelves came up. It wasn't profitable for the shop to do them, so I personally took them. So they were rad too, sliding dovetail, solid alder. They're really cool. But anyway, just these 2 simple bookshelves. I deliver it, and I'm standing there in the guy's entryway, and he's like, "Yeah, who do I make the check out to?" And I went to say Corbin Clay, but I was like, "Well, that sounds unprofessional." So I said, "Corbin Woodworking." And he goes, "Okay." And writes out Corbin Woodworking. And then I take it to the bank, and they're like, "Yeah, hey, numbnuts, this isn't a thing. Like, you can't just deposit a check for something that doesn't exist." So back then, you could just register your trade name with the Secretary of State from the banker's office. So Corbin Woodworking was sole prop was registered that day. And that's how it all started. And then, yeah, maybe 6 to 12 months later, you know, it was failing. Actually, from that project where they had the beetle kill ceiling, I pulled a bunch of that tongue and groove out of the scrap pile and went back and built 2 nightstands and just lived with them for a year, which was actually a policy that we had at Azure. We have to someone on staff lives with every single piece of furniture before we release it to the public.
The new guy has like every new piece of furniture in his apartment. Someone comes over, just bookcases.
So you have a twin, a queen, and a king bed in your house.
Yeah.
So was that when you said you lived with it for a year? Was that just by matter of fact, or was that in your mind saying, "I'm going to live with"? Like, was that intentional, or did the policy come? It was okay.
No, 100% intentional in the early days, because kind of to your all dumbfoundedness as well. It's just like, why were you the only one doing this? Why is nobody else doing something with this? I was certain that something was wrong with it. And it turns out there wasn't. I mean, it is very hard to work with. It is so nice to call up your hardwood supplier and get 2,000 board feet of, knotty alder or, curly maple, whatever you're working with. And it shows up, within whatever your moisture content is out there on the coast. It shows up perfect. You can get it S4, like done, right? Well, that does not exist. We had to buy a special planer with segmented infeed rollers because our rough sawn wood was a full 2 inches. But by that, I mean 1 3/4 up to like 2 3/8, all are 2x4s. Wow. So it was a nightmare to work with, but we felt it was important,
Did you have, I feel like the biggest hang up for everyone, I know you lightly touched on this, would just be the fact that it's pine.
Yep.
And you know, a lot of people having a hang up with pine. It is a soft wood. It's not a super nice wood. It you know, it doesn't finish well, so it has to remain natural. And I feel like it could have a very, if done improperly or not styled correctly, it could be a very dated looking wood.
Yep. So a couple of things to that point. When I first started, you know, I spent a lot of time in the finishing department at my apprenticeship, a full year, and we were doing about a kitchen a week. You know, glaze finishes, like painted glaze finishes, you know, post cat stuff, like lots of pretty advanced finishing, which, by the way, I understand through some of your guys' reviews that we don't get technical enough on this show. So I'm happy to go down a finishing rabbit hole at any time. Just setting that on the table. But no, early on, knotty alder was really, really big at the time in the mountains. So I was like, well, cool. We can make beetle kill pine with this awesome story look like knotty alder, especially if we paint it, you know, do a little rub through. Like, this will look just great. And I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said, a Democrat running as a Republican will always lose to a Republican running as a Republican. Basically, like, just be yourself. Stop trying to shoehorn something into where it doesn't otherwise fit. And that was a really important moment, because we really hit the reset button. And it's like, we're not going to make a Hepplewhite secretary out of pine, let alone pine with blue streaks running through it, right? So we looked at what aesthetics are already using pine and using it well. And Scandinavian style was what we came to. They're already using knotty woods. They have very understated, you know, lots of right angles, not a lot of curves, which from a manufacturing point of view was very convenient. Excuse me. So yeah, I didn't want
to. And there's other Scandinavian companies other than IKEA, right? Are they Scandinavian?
Swedish,
yeah, they're out of Sweden. Yeah, Sweden's in Scandinavia. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, if you Google Scandinavian design or Scandinavian furniture design, there's some gorgeous stuff out there out of knotty pine. You see it a lot more in architectural millwork, you know. But yeah, there's some gorgeous stuff out there. So the first collection I designed was way over designed, and it was just my own hubris. We had all this exposed joinery, and we were using that Abet laminati, the leather type of laminate on the drawer fronts. And I was like, these are awesome. Well, it's awesome on a white background. It's not awesome in someone's living room, right? Good design has context. So we were just over designing this stuff, and we're spending all this time and effort doing this advanced joinery that no one even noticed and no one even cared about, you know, because they were buying the story.
I feel like that's what we deal with every day.
I can see that.
It's like, what are people going to care about, and what are they going to see? Like, you know, what's the installation package going to be? Right. And people don't realize it until you start naming. Like, I go out of my way to name off the envelope and what we're doing, and they're like, oh, then, you know, they go back and search it up, and then they go, all right, now I get this. Now I'm hip to it. But before that, it wasn't even on their radar. Right. But it's the same thing. I mean, I would totally fall in the same category as you, is do all the joinery, make it look dope, you know, and think that it would fit in any design, or that design would then be a magnet for that product.
I also feel like at that point you're kind of getting away from, like, you're not letting the material speak for itself. You're kind of implementing carpentry techniques and laminates that are stealing the show, where at the end of the day, if you're trying to sell something that is this type of pine, that's what you need to kind of let speak for itself. I feel like pine has just had, other than longleaf pine and like the old heart pine, pine's had a rough run for a pretty long time, where it, like, you know, knotty pine in cabins and lake houses, and other than that, it's like, all right, you can buy some pine doors at Home Depot that people stain and they look like crap, but it hasn't, in most of our markets, it hasn't had a place for a really long time.
Yeah, especially in you know, handmade furniture that we're charging quite a bit for, right?
Yeah, because you're going to be spending so much money on. I mean, it's almost like lipstick on a pig, right? Where you're going to sit there and you're going to spend all of this time and money building something, but at the end of the day, are you going to have people who are just going to say, well, it's just pine, like it's pine, and a beetle killed it. Which I think like that could be a hang up for people if not done well, if not marketed well, if not letting the material just speak for itself.
Yeah, and to that point, that's exactly the mistake I made early on. Is, you know, I was trying to do, you know, stacked crown in a kitchen with this pine and then painting as if it were, you know, some type of like a knotty alder. I've referenced knotty alder like 8 times. I don't think I've said the phrase knotty alder once in the last 5 years, but here we are.
I did knotty alder on one job, and I was like, I'm never doing this again.
Well, they call it a poor man's cherry.
Yeah, so I'm scarred by it. I was like, oh, like I didn't know what it was at the time. We put it into a house. It was a whole mudroom. And I remember we got it, and I was like, what is that? Like, I thought something was wrong. I thought someone used the wrong wood.
Like giant holes in the knot.
I was like, what is this? It's knotty alder. I was like, note to self.
Yeah.
They clear that.
Well, you know, it's when I started the company in that lowly banker's office, I did a quick Google search when I got home. And at the time, there were over 90 other woodworking shops in the Denver metro Boulder area. Why would I try to compete with those shops? Why would I throw my hat in the ring with William O's cabinetry and say, yeah, I'm better? I mean, no, you're not. Like, William O's was crushing it, you know what I mean? You need to have something unique that you're doing. You need to have your own unique value proposition. And I had a marketing guy on my advisory board who was fantastic. And one of the big things he always talked about was tension points in culture, right? And if you can find or create a product or service that can alleviate a frustration, a tension point on behalf of your customer, you're already walking down a good path. And our tension point out here was everyone goes skiing, everyone goes hiking. They see these dead pine trees, and it's just such a bummer, you know, like we're just waiting for a giant forest fire to take, you know, a quarter of the state out. Everyone's bummed by it, you know? So when we show up and say, hey, we're making stuff out of that wood you saw, like, you know, we're already in everyone's good graces.
So, yeah, that's true. Who was it? Just Nick? Oh, I didn't know which one of you started talking.
Oh, no, I guess going back, so you made these nightstands.
Yep.
And you were still working for another company. You had taken on that second job. How long, like, what was the transition into Corbin Woodworking?
So the project that we had at that second job, my buddy Nick, coincidentally enough, really good veneer craftsman, got hired to do this project for a petroleum engineer that had no budget on it. I mean, no budget whatsoever. He just wanted to design, you know, each room of the house. So it was all VG fir. We actually flew a guy to British Columbia to select logs.
Can we pause for a moment? Because I think I'd love to have a whole podcast on finding a client that doesn't have a budget. Because that'd be great.
They come with their own issues.
Yeah, I was gonna say I quit that job for a reason. So
yeah, okay,
right. See,
all right,
like
all right.
Yeah, it all sounds good.
All right.
Well, so anyway, so I'm running this cabinet shop. It was actually a children's furniture company during the day, and then I go home, take a nap, get my dog, eat something quick, and then go to the second shop at night. And basically, he was just putting together a team of the best people in town. And I'm a damn good finisher. And we had to match all of this brand new fir veneer to solid VG fir that had already been in the part of the house that we were keeping. And it had aged, but it aged inconsistently and all this other stuff. So he said, do you want a job? I said, absolutely. You know, I had a hard time making friends in Boulder. They call them platinum hippies. I adore Boulder, but everyone there, I'd have my neighbors and friends say, hey, do you want to go skiing tomorrow? I'm like, it's a fucking Tuesday. Like,
it's a problem. I went to school there for a year and I had to leave.
Oh, did you?
Because it was like a bunch of rich kids from Greenwich, Connecticut, who were at school to ski. And like, I'm sitting there stressing, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to pay for this education? What am I going to do done here? And everyone else is just like, oh, we're going to go skiing. happy all the time, and I'm not happy all the time. And it's just everyone's out there hippie tripping, smiling. They have nothing to worry about. And I'm sitting here like anxious, wondering about what I'm going to do with my life. And I was like, I can't be around people like this all the time. It just makes me feel like a piece of crap.
I understand precisely what you're talking about. So yeah, I mean, the point of that story is I didn't have a lot of friends. So I just thought, well, hell, when I get into stuff, I get absolutely obsessed with it. And if I'm going to call myself a furniture maker, I am going to be obsessed with it until I feel like I have mastered the techniques that are important when one refers to oneself as a furniture maker, electrician, whatever it is. So I was totally fine. This is when you guys remember Tommy Mack. You guys know him down there in Boston. You know him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's right when he launched his video blog.
Yeah.
I think his show took a shit pretty quickly.
He changed networks or something.
Forgive the language.
You're good.
Yeah, he replaced Norm,
You can't replace Norm. Let's just get that straight.
I was waiting for you to say it so John could jump in.
I was like, wait a minute.
John, you were so on point there. It was like, he replaced Norm. He can't replace Norm.
Come on.
Like immediately.
Hey.
But yes, he's
Dorothy
he's
Mantooth is a saint.
What'd you say?
Yeah, so I said Dorothy Mantooth is a saint.
Oh.
What's that from? Wedding Crashers? Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway.
It was when.
So yeah, that's right when he had launched that. Yeah, so I had these videos at home, how to sharpen and then use a cabinet scraper, card scraper. Awesome. Bought a burnishing tool. That was my weekend. You know what I mean? And I was fine with it. I was in my, probably early 20s back then, mid 20s. You're in Boulder, Colorado. I had the shop to myself. So I was totally fine taking a second job, making really good money at that second job as well, as long as my puppy could be with me. I was totally fine spending, 14, 16 hours a day, just nerding the hell out on woodworking. So yeah, I jumped right at it.
What, so you said that you were finishing at the kitchen company?
So my apprenticeship was a 2-year apprenticeship, 6 months install, 6 months in the shop building. And then I just happened to spend a year back in the finishing department. One of the reasons I left is the manager of that department was retiring, and it was clear that I was the heir apparent. And I just thought, man, I can't stand here in this 100-degree Florida heat, glazing cabinet doors all day. Like we're all set. And I was actually watching a Dave Matthews concert filmed at Folsom Field there in Boulder. 2 weeks later, I bought a Jeep and moved to Boulder.
And did you enjoy the finishing aspect of what you're doing as much as the carpentry aspect of it?
So I like the predictability of finishing.
What predictability of finishing? There's
see, you finish on
I mean,
site.
I guess if you're
in
a booth where you can control all of that crap, because I feel like you sneeze and it finishes differently than the last time you did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the trick. Is completely closed system, no air in the lines, no water in the air lines. Same exact system every single time. And then the only variable you need to account for is the temperature outside. I really liked that. I really liked, I can't believe I'm advocating on behalf of finishing, because at the time I hated it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated it, which is why at Azure, we didn't do any stains at all, unless it was significant volume, like for a hotel or something. We used a water-based clear. And we use water because it kept the pine really opaque. It didn't turn into that orange color that you see in, the old cabins.
Pine that everyone hates.
So we used in the right context, it's pretty. But yeah, I can see where people.
No, I feel like anytime you put any like oil or solvent on pine, it turns yellow and it turns old.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah, immediately. So no, we use water on that. It kept it really, really opaque. It was a nightmare because all of a sudden you're basically spraying every piece of furniture with a hose. So you got a bunch of grain rays, and I think we never actually diagnosed it fully, but we'd have all these little bumps that would happen, and there was compressed grain, and then it would bump up. And I think it was where the mill was like grabbing the logs to load onto saw or whatever, but every single time we hit that first coat, all these little pop, 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 they just pop up. You know, there'd be 5 sometimes, there'd be 20 sometimes, which was a nightmare. But again, you know, we felt it was important, you know, to deal with all these things, because anybody can build furniture, but it makes it much easier and more palatable to deal with all the bullshit one deals with in running a company when there is some mission toward which you are all working, you know. And that's one of the reasons I sold the business, is because it got to the point to where I had accomplished what I'd set out to do, create some solution to all these dead pine trees. Well, we'd done that and we were doing it. And I had a hard time rallying my team on, like, this is why we're doing what we're doing every day. This is why we got to work all weekend. This is why we got to stay late so I can make more money. You know, I had a hard time. So it's like, it's time to leave. I did what I set out to do.
Was transitioning and even using water on them, obviously there's a finish. There's reasons behind using water with the pine if you're looking to kind of like mute the wood some. But was it that also kind of fit the mission statement of what you're looking to do? Like, was that something that you promoted, that you were using water finishes?
Absolutely. The water that we used was Green Guard certified at the time, which was huge for lead points, which I don't know if lead is much of a thing anymore, but at the time it very much was. And we actually worked with our local congressman to help change the USGBC standards on what locally sourced materials could be used, because you had all these giant resort projects in the mountains surrounded by beetle kill, and they didn't get any lead points for using that beetle kill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I very much wanted. I love products and services that sound almost too good to be true and leave you absolutely no reason to not purchase it, right? It's reasonably priced, it solves your problems, free shipping, you know, on and on and on. You're just like, this is great. They figured everything out for me. And I just would have hated to have said, look how environmentally friendly this is. We're using the dead trees. Oh, and we're going to give you cancer with all the urea formaldehyde it's off-gassing.
Yeah, we're going to spray a bunch of chemicals on it, and then it's going to off-gas and offset the fact that we just saved all of these trees in the first place.
Yeah. Sorry for the FEMA trailer we just made you live in.
Whatever, but we saved a bunch of dead trees.
So yeah, the environmental, I say responsibility part of waterborne finishes as opposed to solvent certainly informed our decision on using that, in addition to the aesthetics of it staying a little more opaque.
So then when you started digging, it somewhat sounds like you flew by the seat of your pants with this and got this rolling. But as you kind of progress in this process, were you learning more and more, whether it were tax benefits or like government, not necessarily loopholes, but things that kind of helped you on your way, that once you got into this, realizing like, wow, this could actually be more lucrative than we had anticipated, being that we're doing this, and this?
Aside from the otherwise low unit price of the material, right? We were paying about 17 cents a board foot. What's walnut nowadays? $7. Maple is $4. You know what I mean?
I don't know what white oak is, but you can't find it anywhere.
Right.
Oh, really? There's a shortage of
white oak right now is.
Oh, Lord.
It's impossible.
We were going to do a white oak kitchen in this next house. So we might have to reevaluate.
I think you only have to use the beetle pine.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like it's in like your
DNA.
We've got this first house. We've got about 4,000 or 5,000 feet of beetle kill in there. We painted it all, but yeah, stay true to my roots.
I picture you like Chip and Joanne. You just put shiplap instead of shiplap. It's beetle kill like everywhere.
I feel like the only wood that there is right now, there's painted wood, walnut, and white oak. That's about it. Like maple, nobody uses anymore.
Yeah. Unless you're doing a butcher block, right?
Yeah. Like cherry, nobody uses anymore. That's where they're like their poor man's cherry, and then it's like nobody even uses cherry anymore.
Yeah. Poor cherry. Cherry's so damn pretty.
It is, but it's the same thing. It looks super dated, and then you get light on it and it just darkens and darkens, and it's like it's pretty, but you put it in a kitchen. I feel like cherry would work well in a library, like a custom library that was all cherry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's tough in a
Mahogany
kitchen.
too.
Yeah. But even like back in the day, I feel like they used to build. You could still get windows and sashes and stuff made of mahogany, but
Yeah.
it's expensive now.
But back in the day when I was my age, it used to be Spanish cedar was like everything.
Yeah.
Outside. It was
Softwood.
all Spanish cedar. And now it's like, I used to go to a shop in Brighton and they'd have these, it looked crazy. It was like all these black tarp covered stacks of Spanish cedar, and they just bought it all when it was low price, and they had it for like decades. They had it there. But then it's like, then it just disappeared. Like no one, I mean, yeah, I feel like you buy stuff in catalogs. It's like baluses that are turned out of pine, like all the stuff that's in catalogs, stuff that's in Home Depot. There's a lot of it there.
Yeah.
You mean you guys aren't doing your high-end construction with finger-jointed project boards from your local home center?
Fine.
So we don't try
What
to
do you
give
mean?
away
Like
all
you
the
turn the
secrets.
heat on and it shrinks up a half inch. Like that was
Hey, but-
definitely tight before. How the hell that just happened?
Oh, pine. I see. I take offense to all the shit talk on pine the same way that your colleague there does on Norm not getting the credit he deserves.
I think that I don't. It's just funny because I feel like people either want a reclaimed vintage like a heart pine or nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's the only pine that people find desirable right now. And I think that pine was done so incorrectly for so many years, and people putting orange stains on them and not letting the actual, I mean, realistically, people started harvesting pine just like anything else way too quickly. So like you look at heart pine where it grew slow and you have all of that beautiful graining in it, and now like you get new pine that grew so quickly, and then they slice it and it's got this open grain that's like inches long. It doesn't take stain well. It doesn't finish well. It's super soft. It bleeds sap for however long. So like nobody's helped pine out at all. Right? Like if you go you around here, there's so much of the subfloor back in the day was pine, like tongue and groove pine that they ran, and then they put their plywood over top of it. And people have gone back to ripping everything off and then finishing that subfloor. And it's still like the 2 1/4, and you go and you buy a piece to put in its place and patch it, and like you finish the floor all the same, and you might as well have just put a piece of like poplar in there. There's the new pine doesn't match at all. It grows so quickly. But I think that if people, I don't know I haven't seen the pine that you guys used. It's just that from what I have seen, it's been used so poorly, and it's like, you go to a cabin and they have the like 5-panel, 6-panel raised panel pine doors, and then like pine 2 1/4-inch casing that somebody put this horrible orange yellow like stain on. And I don't think that they've helped that wood out at all.
Or it's painted and they didn't back prime it, so the knots are just
Yeah.
through it.
Like they put the paneling up and then somebody wanted to turn it white, and you just see the bleed through everywhere.
Every time I'd go to IWF, we did a lot of work with Festool, like promotional work, and I'd be at these different shows with them, and I'm talking to people and telling them what we're doing in Colorado, and it's the exact same response. Let's go, pine, huh? Okay, well,
I think
if it's
that, I mean,
working.
to Tyler's point, like he just said, I think he's scrolling. John just sent Tyler the link to your social media, and I think if you scroll way back, that's
Yeah, I went
where,
to the
Please.
beginning.
yeah,
Please
it's like,
scroll way back.
right, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that part. But if you scroll way back, you see the muted furniture, and it's really modern, contemporary, and Scandinavian's a great look.
And it looks
I mean,
raw.
It looks raw. And I think that it's not exactly what you're saying, Tyler. That's not what we envision pine to be. It's like you're envisioning, the mill stores, stuff. It's like
the shops that you go by and it's unfinished.
Yeah, like log cabin-ish. And this is not. It's this muted, really, really cool variation in the beetle pine.
I think that like even joinery plays a role in that, because most of the pine carpentry that I see, it's like, you took a Home Depot class on the weekend and built that nightstand.
It was a kid's class.
Like you bought a brand new Craig
blowout. Yeah. So I think that, that subtle execution, I think, helps a lot as well. No, I like this stuff. I think it is pretty. It's funny because a lot of people don't want to use water finishes when they're leaving something natural, because it does really mute the tones of the wood, and then it doesn't age. It just kind of keeps that look forever, which is why most people get away from it, and they want to put an oil on it. They want to really bring out the undertones of the wood. But I think with something like pine, and looking at these pictures, it definitely helps it out, because it does kind of it makes it look more uniform, and you're not trying to hide something. Audio froze?
Tyler, I know you're talking about...
Let me turn this. I think I might still be on Wi-Fi.
Tyler, I think you're talking about furniture and that stuff, but I'm thinking about like flooring.
Yeah.
Is that a lot of times we are trying, and I know, Nick, you and I walked at this old house that time. We both stopped when we walked in and was like, did you guys finish this floor? Like, we were freaking out that there wasn't protection down all the way.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, that was like, was that Loba back in the day?
Natural or whatever.
It wasn't Bond. It was like Loba, and it looked literally raw.
Yeah.
And it looked amazing. And I know both Nick and I walked away. We did them like 2 jobs from then. We did it on projects, but I feel like it's 2 things. A lot of our clients want it. Can we leave it the way it is when it goes down? That's what I get a lot of. And then the other part is we've been doing a lot of that fuming, which is like, it almost looks like how I put it, which is like the simplest terms out there, is people want that restoration hardware look, that wire brush look. How do you get that in the floors? And, Will's done that with, Premier, that it's got that crazy kind of look to the floor. We've done that for all of our high-end stuff, has been that kind of fuming process, and it looks absolute dynamite. Basically, you show it to a client. So you are getting that, but you're getting the grain to pop through that fuming.
Ammonia fuming?
It's not ammonia.
No, like
it's
the hard wax oils and all that crap. Like all the natural oils.
They call it fuming. I thought it was ammonia as well. And I wasn't. It basically turns the wood purple on the first round, and then they come back and coat it again. And it basically, every time, I don't want to be there during the first process, because I'm always like, dude, what'd you do to this floor? It's 5,000 square feet. How am I even gonna? Yeah, and then you got to trust the process 150%, and then they put on this next top coat, and it looks absolutely great. It's like a little bit of white they can add to it, so it catches the grain, and it makes it pop. So it's really, I know it's sidetracked, but Tyler, it's usually like keep it just the way it is when it goes down, or how do you get me that little play of restoration hardware? And I'm probably playing that wrong, but
no, but I feel like a lot of those hard wax oils, they do a good job of bringing out the tones of the wood, but then the finish of it is almost like buttery. And
it is the most slipperiest floor.
That stuff is a little bit different, because it's not necessarily muting the wood, but the finish itself, it almost feels like velvety, and it doesn't create like this sheen that makes it seem like a semi-gloss floor finish.
100%.
And I do like that stuff too, which is,
and it wears super well.
Yeah.
We just went back into our Dover project, and they have a dog, and I was freaking out. You spend so much money on that floor, and they're gonna have a dog, and the thing races around. It zooms around the house, and we were looking around like, how's it holding up? He's like, literally, you can't even tell with the dog.
Yeah. Like
the dog comes in the door. You just think the dog comes in one door every time, and you can't tell. And I'm like, I'm sold.
And it's super easy to like touch up at that point too.
yeah, they can come in and touch up whenever they want. And then if they just want to add another coat,
Yeah.
it's so much less evasive than the normal, even water-based finishes.
No, we did
Sorry,
it on
sidetracked.
the on one job where it was like a character grade hickory, I think, and I loved the way that it looked afterwards. But it was, natural, no stain, no finish, no color. Just kept
Nick,
it
was that
natural.
Loba at this old house?
That was, yeah, it was Loba Invisible.
Dude, it looked
And-
like it was.
Yeah, it was
Gone.
totally bare. I used that on one job, and then they have Bona has the Natural.
Natural, yeah.
It's not the
Which-
same though.
It's not, but if you use
Traffic.
you use the Natural with the Natural sealer or something like that, it gets it pretty close. But the Natural does have like I'm gonna make this up, a 5% sheen, where Invisible has like 0, like it's completely matte.
And do you think any floor guy actually puts the primer on? They always say they do 2 coats. They always say when they leave, they're like, yeah, we put the primer in, we got a coat in too. And then I walk in there and I go, I'm fucking suspect of you.
Yeah, dude, I always wonder
I've
about
watched
that
it.
too, because like they'll give me their schedule and how many coats they're going to get per day, and then they're always behind schedule and don't get stuff done, but then still get out at
always-
the same time.
Or they
I'm
gain on
like,
finish.
Yeah,
And
I'm
you're
like,
wait a minute.
how did you get through? Like you were one coat behind everything on schedule, but then you got out at the same
I've
time.
never dealt with that with floor guys, but I know, and we're sidetracking hard here, but I remember when I first started my company, I was working with a painter who was highly recommended to me. And it was like 3 jobs in when I remember going in, and he's like, we just wrapped up all the ceilings. And I'm like, that's primer. He goes, it's the same thing. And I was like, what? And he goes, it's the same thing as ceiling paint. And I remember picking it up,
except it
and
doesn't cover.
and I looked at the back, and I'm
It's
like,
bare. It's primer.
not
and one
only
coat.
is it primer, but it's also, it says on it, not made for plaster.
Oh God.
Even better.
I was like, this is for drywall only. And yeah,
Same
it was
thing.
like
Plaster and
Same
drywall.
thing.
like my and I remember the last time, like when I caught it, the client also said something about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm in for a world of hurt here.
Yeah, that sucks.
But
All right,
All
so
right.
where were we?
I want to go back. So Corbin, going back, you're working at night, 16 hours a day, geeking out on this stuff. You build these nightstands, you live with them for a year. It sounds like this is kind of where you're starting to use beetle kill pine, building furniture in this side job, but at some point it turned into Azure.
Yeah, well, so it was originally Corbin Woodworking, and then it was 2012, 2013 or so when I realized that we need to. I'd actually started getting some business advice from people, and we'd had 3-4 years of difficulty under our belt. Working around the clock. This is after I started the company, right? So working around the clock. Never seem to have any money, damn sure don't have any free time. Like, what am I doing wrong? Clearly there's something wrong here. So the best entrepreneurs I know ask for help. I mean, if there is one common personality trait to the best business owners and entrepreneurs that I know, it is that they have the humility to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I'm good at these things. I don't know anything about these things. So I would like to claim some membership to that club. So I just started asking around, everybody I know. We had one really wealthy, very successful customer that had her own business. She helped me out a lot. I would just start cold emailing.
What were you asking? Like, what questions were you asking?
So it depended. So I put together an advisory board, a very unofficial advisory board. There are no, shares issued or anything. But it would depend on the context, and it would depend on the person's background. So we did a bunch of work for a whiskey company out here, a spirits company called Leopold Brothers. And there are 2 brothers, one of whom is a Stanford finance grad. I didn't go to college. I don't know the first thing about business finance, right? So, I would just have these certain issues. I would try to I would try to, collect 3 or 4 issues that I was really dealing with. How do I know what to pay myself? When do I hire that next employee? Is there a ratio out there of what my total salary to top line spend should be? Just all these kind of basic metrics that it's no different than as you're learning woodworking. How do we cut this specific miter? You know what I mean? Do we cut it flat? Do we cut it nested? I don't know. What does the context require, right? And that was the answer I got a lot. And early on, I would make the mistake of just asking these like super vague questions. And then I ultimately learned these people are just as busy, if not busier than I am, running their own companies that are much, much bigger. So I need to hone in on, say, 3 to 5 specific issues I'm dealing with, that these guys can just critique, as opposed to me saying, hey, what should I do for a marketing campaign next year? And the guy's like, dude, we charge 7 figures,
Right.
to answer that question. So it would really depend on the time and the circumstance and the specific advisor with whom I was having a chat to see what are they good at. I had basically finance, business, marketing, and just kind of another like business advisor, people that had shown to be successful with their respective businesses, that obviously know more than I do. I mean, it's a fairly safe assumption that they know more than I do. So I just want to sit and listen, just ask as many questions as possible, just get them talking. And it's kind of like a podcast, right? You listen to an hour-long podcast, you might get 55 minutes worth of good content. You might get one 10-second nugget that you leave with that could spiral into a pivot of your business. Who knows what, right? So I would just, ask lots of questions. They weren't too specific, other than I remember one time I was having dinner with an advisor. She was actually a customer turned advisor, still a good friend. She was at our wedding. And we just finished up a huge hotel, and I'd set aside, we used to do a 60-40 deposit balance structure, right? So we were able to produce almost the entire project, 7-figure project, on that 60%. Our numbers were airtight. Our shop was just humming, like we had super efficient processes in place. So where that last 40%, when we got that check, we didn't owe any money on it. Like we didn't have any bills to pay, payroll was up, everything was ready. So I set aside 3 months for overhead and, set aside a few other things. And we were having dinner, she and I. And I said, I think I'm gonna move some money over and like buy some land. And she's like, yeah, cool, do it. I was like, but man, what about 6 months from now? What if, the straight line rip breaks, and now I got to write another $15,000 check to replace that or fix it or whatever? What if I'm not going to have payroll one day, this and that? And we're a bottle of wine in, but she slams her fork down and she says, that is your money. She says, you're the one that took the risk. You're the one that spent all your life savings getting the equipment for the shop. You're the one that puts yourself out there publicly to where if you fail, a lot of people are watching it. That is your money. If you want to buy something, then take that money and buy it. And I'd never been talked to like that. I never heard somebody say, because I never thought it was my money. Like, we, us, employees, team, family. Like, I got guys on staff making $14 an hour. How am I going to write myself a check for $100,000? That just felt inappropriate, right? And this lady really helped me understand. It's like, you made $14 an hour at 1.2 when you were entry level at your career. I hate to say it, but they're not worth more than $14 right now, And she just kind of helped me like really understand that it's like, you're the one that took all the risk. You're allowed to do this.
Do you think that's detrimental to a lot of business owners that have that same mindset? Like the whole team approach that, they're nothing without their team and the people who work for them, but then always putting them before themselves? I'm
yes
looking
and no.
at Nick.
I mean,
listening.
when it became very obvious that I was continuing to make unnecessary and now unreasonable sacrifices that didn't need to be made, then yes, it in fact became detrimental. So to answer your question, yeah, if you've reached a point to where you can move money over to yourself, right? It's like, when do you finally take that leap to say, I'm giving myself a raise, or I'm going to move 100K over because I want to go buy this piece of property, or whatever the case is, right? There's always uncertainty, and I think that you can what if yourself till you're blue in the face, and that's what she really helped me understand, was just like, after a while, you just kind of have to be a little selfish, not irresponsibly selfish. You don't want to be reckless. You don't want to be missing payroll because you bought a Corvette. You're just an asshole at that point.
You should never buy a Corvette.
But
just put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Well, they got the new mid-engines. I mean, they're not too
buy a
bad.
Ferrari.
Hey, you know who drives? Hey, Norm drives a Corvette.
He does.
No way. He drives a Beamer. I saw it.
He does drive a Beamer.
He built it himself too.
Drove by me and I was like, you should be in an old F-100. No, I guess, Tyler, to your point, I do think it does hold people back, owners. But I also think there's something about, I've thought about this long and hard, like almost every ride home is like, there's something that keeps me on my toes. For example, myself, I can't speak for anyone else, is that keeps me on my toes because I feel like I haven't succeeded yet. And there's always something to prove tomorrow. And there's always something to make happen. And as soon as I make that move where there is enough to cover and I'm not worried about that, then I'll let my guard down. It's almost like whenever anything is running smooth, I don't ever enjoy it. I'm always
does anything ever run smooth?
It is occasionally, but you never want to admit it because you're like,
seconds.
That means something's going to fall apart or I'm not looking the right spot.
What's going to hit me?
Yeah, you get me? It's like, so to that entrepreneurial thing is like, yeah, like, do I want to let into the fact that maybe part of the chase is chasing that success, and that we always up the bar a little bit because we never want to. We enjoy that chase. We weren't in the game to be successful. I mean, obviously we were. It sounds ridiculous. I get it. But it's like, I enjoy the game of getting there a lot.
Yeah. I guess I think of it also from the standpoint where you're so concerned with putting everyone before yourself and making sure that everyone's accounted for and everyone has everything that they need, that you're not focusing on your own needs. And I'm always of the mindset where it's, how good of a husband can you be? How good of a father can you be? How good of a business owner can you be if you're not taking care of yourself? Because I feel like we're going to, I'm going to be the best husband I can be if mentally I'm in a good place, or if I have enough sleep, or if jobs are going well, or I have everything in order. And I just feel like if you're in a position within your company that you can't take care of yourself, you can't reap any of the rewards for the sacrifices and the positions that you put yourself into, that, like, how good of a boss can you be? Are you being the best business owner that you can be if you don't have the ability to take care of yourself?
No, it's true. But on the flip side, we've all had those bosses that you've built their summer home.
Yeah.
And you've built their stuff. They've built their success in your back.
Well, all right. So Corbin,
that's taking advantage of people.
I know, but that is, I think that's what I've grown up around. So it's like, yeah, I had a part in that, meaning I didn't ask for more on my own terms. I didn't go, hey, as that carpenter, I should have made $25 an hour instead of 18. So is he taking advantage of me, or am I just not valuing myself? I look at it both ways. But yeah, I think we've all been. Nick, jump in there.
Well, I was going to say, Corbin, in that, you're sitting at dinner. She throws her fork down. She's, kind of set.
Was it your table?
No, it was not.
Because that thing
put the fork into your.
If it was pine,
Dude,
it was
listen,
definitely
that's pine.
dented.
That shit's soft.
She dented
that.
it, and the table broke, and it was very embarrassing.
You
So I
guys
didn't
wouldn't do
actually
it.
sell.
Return
I didn't
policy.
sell my business. Yeah, we went bankrupt after that.
So after this, like you're getting set straight, right? And more or less, did you end up buying the piece of land at that time?
Yeah, that next morning I moved $100,000 over.
Right. So that probably changed your mindset in the business. And, with that being said, I think getting after what John's talking about, was there ever a time in the business that, the kid making $14 an hour or someone else in the business looked at you and said, it had any negativity to you utilizing your success? Like, hey, maybe you should be focused more on us, or maybe you should be more focused on the business.
They don't tell the boss. They talk to everyone else at the coffee break and go, "You hear that shit?"
Yeah, I mean, right. But that chatter moves around. That chatter always comes around at some point.
The license plate says "number one boss."
I like that one.
So to answer your question, about year 4 or 5, I made an org chart for about 10 different positions when I was the only employee on staff. I started to think of my business the same way that I think of whatever product I'm producing, right? I started to envision and then ultimately articulate a plan for what the Azure Furniture Company looks like when it is finished. Whatever that is, personally, for you guys. What does your business look like when it's finished? You know exactly what the house looks like when it's finished.
But to break it down to furniture, you were like, if I'm going to make this table, it needs 4 legs, a top, blah, blah. You made it that similar? It was like, hey, I just want to, yeah, right? He just was like, you know what? It's exactly like the components I need for that table or that chair. It's what I need for my business.
I mean, it wasn't by any means that
well, I feel like a lot of people listen to this go, I don't know how to make an org chart. And it's like, but it can be as simple as writing down what your stock list is. The tools you need and how to dial it in that way. It is very similar in that way, where someone that says they can't make an org chart, it's just that easy.
No, here's the thing. First of all, have a shred of resourcefulness and do a Google search. You're not allowed anymore in 2021 to say, I don't know this about this. Like, you should be able to educate yourself enough to be dangerous in any subject, right? You're just choosing not to. But no, there's, what do you want out of your business? Why did you start your business? And this is specifically for you, but it's also just a general question that every frigging business owner should ask him or herself. What is the point of your business, you personally? And then when you come up with the answer, you say, okay, cool. This is what I want out of this venture. And then you start to basically work back from there, right? I want to make $250,000 a year. How do I make $250,000 a year? Well, now I'm making $50,000 a year. All right, cool. There's a way to get there, right? I'm making $50K a year with 1 crew. So I either need to raise my prices, cut my costs, or add 4 more crews, right? I mean, again, this is a very complex subject that it's hard to just give, pithy, cogent answers to. But that's basically what I did. And I really started nerding out on my company as if it were a franchise. If I were to write down a book of this is how to run the Azure Furniture Company, I am not needed in this process. I am now going to give you, Johnny, this book so you can open up is it Wellesley or Wesley?
Wellesley, yep.
Yeah, that branch of the Azure Furniture Company. Not a good venture, my man. I don't think Beetle Kill will do well, but you understand my point. It's like when you start to look at your business and you start to replace yourself within that organization with systems, then all of a sudden you have metrics and accountabilities for each of those systems and each of those positions. So then when you slowly start to fill each one of those systems, which either multiple systems handled by a single person or individual systems handled by individual people, whatever it is specific to your organization and the requirements of your organization, then after a while you realize the people that are doing their respective jobs are doing it for what is a reasonable market rate. All of our systems are working. Once all your systems are working, you realize that this company you built is just a little profit machine. Income in, profit out, because all of our systems are working. So then it makes it much, much easier to say, well, everyone is taken care of. And I know that because we have metrics in place. We have systems in place to say, if this happens, then this happens. Lots of if-then logic, right? So it's very easy to say, well, everything is taken care of. Literally everything is taken care of because we have a system in place for that, very thoughtful. So now if there's money left over, that was one of the original points of creating all these systems. So it makes it a lot easier because I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big data guy. To whereas, have you guys ever read the Lean Startup?
No.
Fantastic book. It basically talks about make as few assumptions as possible with anything you do in your business. So you come up with a hypothesis and then you test that hypothesis. I'm going to use this email greeting, whenever someone reaches out to me. And then you just start to put together data. You start collecting data, right? So anyway, I'm real big on that stuff. And then after a while, you switch from subjective to objective, right? You can say, I'm looking at these numbers objectively. Everything is taken care of. Customers are happy. Revenue comes in. Profit goes out. Everything is working. I'm now going to take a draw.
I'm with you. I just feel like a lot of people that listen to this go, I'm just a carpenter. It's above my pay grade. And that's a mistake where I talk to people every week and they're like, where do I start? And I'm like, write down your data. Like I talked to someone last week and like, I'm going to build my first house next. I sign a contract. I'm freaking out. What do I do? And it's like, what's the contract for? And they're like, 400,000. I'm like, is it open-ended? Meaning, is it a cost plus scenario? Because things might fluctuate. Cover your basis that way. I go, but honestly, even if you have a little bit of profit that covers everything, that's a bonus because the amount of data you're going to get out of this build is crucial for your next 2 or 3 products that come down the line. If you're getting out of whatever it is, let's say it's deck building or doing something that's very specialized. And now this is a big jump for you, which I think is possible with this economy. It's just not just taking that on and having the blinders on and going, how do I make it through this project? How do I make it through this build? But actually having a notebook and tracking every ounce of it. So that way, when you go to the next step or the next bid comes in and someone goes, hey, I like what we did in that one. I have a project, my budget's 600,000. Guess what? You need to know right then and there, it's a yay or nay. And if you don't know that, then you failed on that project. That's the true failure of that first project. Because if you go down that road and you say yes to the next 2 builds and you didn't realize your numbers didn't work on the first one, now you're 2 years in on you made profit on the cabinet shop. These guys don't know that until they're 2 years in. And that's why there's this unknown if you're not tracking your numbers. And it gives me the ability to make, Nick, you and I've talked about it, a project that comes along and you may fall in love with it or it obstructs your view of reality that you should say no. Is that?
Are you poking at me, John?
No, I'm the same way. We're both the same way. And it's like, but how do I do a feasibility study on this so I'm not just burning my time when the reality is it is a non-starter,
right?
And I'm lying to myself.
Right.
And I think that's the flaw in almost all of us is that we fall in love with something that isn't profitable for what we can do.
Right.
Not that your skill's not there, not that your sub pool, the architecture doesn't have the details. It's the fact that that product doesn't fit your actual company. And we get stuck in that. And then you get in that rut. And man, by the time, and people just ignore it because they're still working day to day. It's not like they're failed. You get me? Because then they'll make the next one work a little, they'll tweak it 1% and they're improving. And that's not going to be enough to have, you retired early, but just a retirement in general, like to have that 401k, you're not going to draw that 2% out of your paycheck because that 2% counts. That's why people always get whacked this time of year, because they haven't pulled anything out. They've used every bit of their salary, their checks to make life happen on a day-to-day basis. And then by the end of it, they're like, oh my God. Like this time of year, it's like, it's spooky for people, tax season, when it's coming up. It's like they just ignored it to this day. And this is a reality. And this is people's true, like, New Year's resolution. I'm going to do it differently this year. It's tax season. It's not January 1.
So do you guys all have a goal with your respective businesses?
Get out alive.
The one singular goal?
Get out alive.
Don't kill myself.
That's horseshit, guys.
I know. I would say yes, but I know, like, mine, I feel like constantly changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm frustrated that it changes. So I would have to, if I'm answering honestly, I think not 100%. And I'm working, especially more recently, hard to really understand and, and kind of dissect what that is, because I'm doing exactly what you're talking about. I'm looking at the goal. I'm looking at what do I want to make.
Look at John's shit-eating grin on his face right now.
He doesn't have his.
He's like, I'm going to show him my Venn diagram.
John has like his papers that he's been drawing on the kitchen table. The
What
rain
happened?
sitting in. We just saw you got your business plan from the other room.
Yeah, I got it.
But it's like,
He's been waiting. How old are you? 41. Waiting 41
Look at this.
years for this.
That's my full plan that I rewrote after
Last podcast.
Client offered me. He goes, if I put $500,000 into your company, what would it do? And I was like,
I'll be right back.
no, I was just like, what would I do with it? Like, I remember the first time a client asked me that, I was like, I'll buy property. And that was the wrong answer. And this time I would scale to an uncomfortable point that I knew it would work once I got all together. So I broke this out. You guys can't see it, but I literally put, I put the company structure in place, and then I created 3 different divisions: the custom division, the development division, and the concierge division. And I broke out each individual person I needed, how many people they are, what their salaries are. Then I broke down each division. So what my monthly payroll is for if I were to add the concierge division tomorrow, what that would cost, and then what the benefit would be. And then if I were to use just development, what that would need. And then if I were to double up on the custom division, which now I look at it, I think I drew this. I don't know how
Guys, for
many months
anyone
ago.
listening, we'll make sure we include a link to this entire PDF. No, I'm just
It's got every number. It just, and I do it in different colors. So I understand when I look back at it, what that train of thought was.
It's work. The colors thing's working well for you.
I know, right? Colorblind.
Trying to figure out what the hell I was thinking. You know that your mind was just like racing one day.
Well,
and
you
he's
can
moving
tell
from
it. It
one
was
day.
tell by the way
It's
he's
the first
looking,
time
like,
he's looked back at
he's
it.
talking about it, and he's
Yeah.
like, his voice
He's
slows
like, wait,
down.
this
He's
doesn't
like,
make
wait,
sense.
yeah, what was I thinking here?
Well, because
You're
when I wrote
definitely-
this,
it was like you were drunk when you wrote it.
no, my
It's
wife
like one
was,
of those things where it's like I completely forgot that I did that until he just said that. I'm gonna
I
go
felt like I
find
was the
this.
dude from Good Will Hunting. Like I was just drawing on the eraser board and then I
Yeah.
blacked out. No, I look at it now and it's like the custom division. I had 2 PMs and 2 supers running 4 products. I had the product values broken down, and now I look at it now and we have 3 PMs and 3 supers. And it just, I need to look back at it. But I moved Benny into the GM role. Operations did that. So yeah, this did happen. But the funny thing was, after I did the math, the whole thing, whatever, sidetrack, was that if I broke it down to what, or I was comfortable, like what I'm paying now for overhead, for my payroll biweekly, and then I broke it down. If I were to add concierge, that whole division, it was going to change my payroll by like short money. It's almost like buying a house and then going, well, like when a client buys a house from us, it's like, if we want to add a pool, it's $200K to a $3 million mortgage. $300,000 mortgage is a fraction. So it's like when I look at that concierge, like, come on, I could honestly add that division now and it would increase my payroll by like $2,000. Like that's not crazy. And the benefit out of it would be huge for us. So that's why I did it, because it made myself feel better. And then I had a whole division for, what do I do with a controller? And that's why we're making that step now. We're hiring a new controller for the business, and what that salary takes. What's that going to do? What's it going to take off my shelf?
So Corbin,
Bravo, my man.
Yeah, to answer your question, John is by far the most analytical when it comes to this. And I'm like head underwater with it right now. It's just, actually, we scaled very quickly, we hired a lot of people, we've built, multiple divisions in my company. And now it's a matter of refining all of those divisions. And, in last year, we made tremendous progress. And this year we're looking to make even more progress and more refinement. And it's, I started working with a coach, and it was exactly what you said. It's like, what do you want to make a year? What do you want to do? How much time do you want to spend with your kids and your wife a week? And in outlining the things that I didn't make considerations for, where it's like all I was considering was the company, the people, the projects, and forgetting the fact that in order for me to do all those things, I wasn't even in tune with the fact that I was working 80 hours a week to get that, and taking a salary that didn't equate to 80 hours a week. So it's really interesting to me. And that's why I don't think I can answer honestly that, yes, I know what that end goal is. I feel as though I know what I want right now, but I'm curious to see, like, as I work through the organization and refinement of the company, as to if that is actually in tune with what I want now.
Are you the sole shareholder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right on. Yeah.
Tyler's digging into I just sent these guys the photo of my.
I just shared it. So Corbin, I want to go back to something you had said, that you put together an advisory board.
I wrote that down too.
You skimmed over that. You said they don't have any shares in the company, but when I heard that, I was like, all right, it must be like the employees of the company. But then you mentioned this lady that threw a fork through your table, and I'm like, wait, she doesn't work for the company, and she's on the advisory board. So unpack that just a little bit. Like, what exactly is an advisory board in this sense, and who are these people? And I guess the third part is that why do they care? Like, why are they even wanting to be part?
What's the incentive to give you advice?
Yep.
Exactly.
Great question. So it was a very unofficial. It was a very, who knows? Their advice might be terrible. But no, it was very unofficial. My understanding is that a traditional advisory board typically has advisors' shares, right? So you are getting some equity of the company, and under a normal circumstance, that is the benefit. Again, whether or not that company issues a dividend, or in the event of an exit, you then make a little money because you've got 2% advisor shares. I never had any of that, right? And basically what it was is, once I got ignored by 5 people before the one marketing guy on my advisory board finally replied back to me. I did sales. My last role in the company was outside sales. You have to have a thick skin. You have to be prepared to be ignored or told to fuck off and all kinds of other things. So I would just find other business owners that I admired. And I'm not talking about Steve Jobs, I'm talking about local people that are actually accessible, that you could potentially buy a cup of coffee and pick their brains for, an hour or an afternoon or whatever. So that's exactly what it was. True knowledge is knowing what you don't know, right? And I realized I'm really good at these things. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing with these things. And I can't afford right now somebody to do these things, right? So I need someone to explain this to me, because I got to fake it until I can hire somebody to do these internally, right? So I would just call people. I would email people, and say, basic cold email. My name's Corbin. I have this little furniture shop. And I don't know too much about this, this, and this. You appear to excel in these issues. Any chance I could buy you a cup of coffee? My schedule's open, happy to accommodate. You know, a lot of people flat out ignored it, and other people wrote back and said, of course, happy to help. I mean, that's the entire reason I started my webpage. I have the very humble URL, CorbinClay.com. And there's a giant contact me section at the bottom, because anyone listening, for God's sakes, email me. If I don't know the answer to your question, I'll tell you, and I can hopefully point you in the right direction, but I may very well know the answer. And it may very well help you out, and it may very well shave off 3, 4, 5 years worth of walking in the dark, knocking shit over, because you don't know the answer. And then finally, through podcasts and YouTube and Google searches and talking to your brother who's in finance and all this other stuff, finally you come up with the answer. But yeah, to answer your specific question, I would just reach out to them. I'd say this guy's a multi-millionaire, and he excels in this specific category. I think that could benefit my company. I'll offer to buy him a cup of coffee. It was really that simple.
And that was the incentive. It was a cup of coffee.
I think you have to find the right person, obviously. Like,
right.
I think some people want to help.
The mix is Starbucks.
Precisely. Now, if you're just trying to get somebody that could be extremely valuable to your organization, that isn't just wanting to help you, then you have to offer some type of financial incentive, generally financial. I'll build you a table, or who knows what, right? But I didn't want to deal with those types of people. I mean, I'm not saying those types of people as if it's that, necessarily like a pejorative, but I just thought I'm in no place to be offering additional things financially. And I'm really busy as it is. I'm not making any money. I don't know why. Who out there has made money in a business? Okay, this lady. Hey, her name's Jillian. Jillian, how do I make money in my company? And Jillian's super smart. She says, let's start from the beginning. And that then started this journey, right? You can't, there's not just one answer, but, you got to, make sure that your costs are this. And I mean, it's so circumstantial. It's almost impossible to just have one answer, right? Build a product that people need might be the only generalized answer, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be profitable. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to succeed. Execution's everything, right? So yeah, that's how it was. And like I said, I got ignored a lot. I got told thanks, but no thanks a lot. And you got to lick your wounds and send out 5 more cold emails.
But did you follow up with the same people, or was it like that one and done and you took that wisdom? So you're able to circle back with the same people?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So I don't want to say that I was this, annoying chihuahua nipping at your ankles, but you have to acknowledge that you are in fact inconveniencing these people, or at least it's a safe assumption that you're inconveniencing these people. So I would always bookend it with, I just want to say, I'm incredibly grateful for your help. You have made a tangible improvement in my company and in my own, personal well-being. I'd love to continue where we left off on the last conversation. How does Thursday look for dinner? Cold email technique, have a hard ask in there. How does Thursday at 7 look for dinner at this restaurant, right? Because then, it's, well, Thursday doesn't work, Friday does. Cool. Instead of just like, hey, can we meet up soon? Yeah, of course we can meet up soon. And then nothing really gets locked down, right? So if anyone listening is planning on doing that.
That's just a good piece of advice in general. Like, the back and forth planning, it's like if someone reaches out, yeah, it's absolutely miserable. And it's your success rate is basically constrained every time that there's an exchange, where you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
In business in general, for whatever, it's like you go in, it's, you keep it simple and then a hard ask.
Just make sure to not feel entitled or come off as feeling entitled.
No, like you don't hey, I deserve your time.
Yeah. That's
you should always be appreciative.
Yeah.
For sure.
I delete that email in a second.
Sure.
But if somebody wrote me and said, hey, dude, sounds like you know what you're talking about. I'm having the same issues. In fact, I have a wood shop as well. I'm working around the clock. I got this employee. I don't think I can afford him. What the hell? But I'll talk to you on the phone for 4 hours, help you out. No problem. Again, what else am I doing?
So we want to get there. So
what was your goal with your business when you started it? Obviously, initially it was to fill a need, but then once you got into it, what was your mindset like?
And when did it change? And when did it come clear?
So I read a book called The E-Myth, and everyone out there should read it if you have a business.
That's a good book.
And it that's when it changed. And my specific goal was to choose what I did every day. If I want to put the apron on and go back and make some sawdust, I get to do that. Bless you, whoever just sneezed.
Thanks.
And if I want to put on a suit, the last 18 months I was at Azure, I was wearing a suit most days, doing outside sales. Felt like a friggin' gangster. It was good fun. If I want to put on a suit, I'm going to go do that. Or if I want to go play hockey at noon on a Tuesday, I'm going to go play hockey. That was my goal, was to have that kind of autonomy, to know that everything is churning along.
I can't play at noon.
Playing hockey at noon.
Hey, man, let's chat.
I'll fly out to Colorado. Bring my gear.
But no, seriously, and it sounds, I remember listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, reading this book, and in my head, I'm just thinking, fuck off, man. It's not that easy. Like, yeah, how convenient. You're talking about how easy it was, here in hindsight. And I understand that sentiment. Everyone listening, I really do understand that sentiment. But it takes a while, and it takes some very careful, thoughtful planning. But Johnny, I got excited, dude, when you lifted that chart up. I don't care how haphazard it is. I don't care if it's 15 colors or one color, or if it's got Johnny's CEO, and it doesn't matter. The fact that you're even writing it down, post that shit up on your wall. Look at that thing every day. You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of, you would not build a kitchen. You would not build a $25,000 kitchen with this now precious, apparently white oak, without a plan, without a friggin' set of plans that
Naughty
you are
Alder.
constantly referencing. Naughty Alder, hey, Naughty Alder. But yet, that's exactly what we do with our businesses.
Yep.
We're all damn good craftsmen, damn good, tradesmen, plumbers, electricians. And then we just decide one day to start a business for whatever reason. And then we just kind of hope to figure it out.
No,
hope is not a strategy.
Well, Nick, it wasn't hope. It was just that, like, I was joking. We always used to joke back and forth. It's like, what's the numbers on that? When Nick would make decisions, he'd buy a fleet of sprinters and be like Tyler and I would text him like, dude, what the F is going on? Not like you bought one van, he bought 3. Then they get lettered. In my mind, I'm compounding all these prices. And I'd be like, so what's the breakdown? I don't know. But like, Nick relied on talent. It's like, let's look at the hockey. A lot of people don't map out their like career in hockey. They go as far as their passion and their talent will take them. And I think a lot of people do the same thing in woodworking. And there's an artist part of it. And it's like, I'm going to rely on my talent. I know I'm good at this. And they tell themselves that every day. It's just breaking into the whole business part of it and then letting go of stuff. That's why there's so many sole proprietors in this industry that literally still swing a hammer, because that's what they do. And then they squeeze their nights into bookkeeping and all that because they don't trust anybody else, or they don't want anyone else to know their numbers because they're upside down and backwards. And it's like, how do you do it where you're almost giving in to say, you know what, talent isn't enough? And that's scary for a lot of us because that's the only kind of power that they have in this industry.
It depends on what talent, right? If
really, it comes down to, like, most of us get into it to make things, whether it's a house or maybe they're siders or roofers. That is their talent. And bookkeeping and doing the numbers and Excel and even sending emails is something they have to then acquire as a new learned kind of talent.
No, and that's exactly right. And it goes back to that, excuse me, it goes back to that original question of, what do you want out of this? I'm not saying that every company needs to be Amazon, right? If what you want out of this is not having a boss, and I just want to choose what projects I work on, or because I just don't want to work for somebody, right? It could be as simple as that. And then if that's your goal, you might not need a fleet of 10 vans and a production manager and 15 project managers and an office manager and a showroom manager, right? If your goal is to just, I don't want to work for this other person or any other person, I just want to be able to work on my own. Cool. If that's your goal, then friggin' double down on it and do it properly, right? And I feel like that we all really understand this as craftspeople. It's like, if you're going to make something, friggin' do it properly. How is that any different with your business? But the point is, doing your business properly starts from whatever your original goal is, right?
I think that the biggest problem with craftspeople is that they're relying on their craft to make a living. And I think that the way that we get into it and the way that it naturally progresses is, here's what I'm good at, here's what I can charge money for, and you're basically exchanging that time for money. And at that point you get into it, and it's almost like you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, you're not able to afford to step back to try and figure out how to make a business actually work at that point. And I think there's a lot of layers to that, but I think most of it is people starting their own business because it's like, hey, I'm maxed out, I'm capped at what I could make working for people, working for someone else. I can put more hours in on my own, I can charge a little bit more on my own. And then once you get into it, it's like, holy crap, I don't have time to take a step backwards and figure out what I need to do to afford this or to afford that, or be able to hire this person, or I can't afford an accountant this year because taxes crept up on me. And it's almost this vicious cycle where you're constantly just trying to keep your head above water.
Yeah, and then the other side of it is, like, when things start to get tough, most people don't lunge into that part of the business. They usually go back into their comfort zone, which is making sawdust or whatever.
Or just, hey, I got to listen, I'm not making enough money, I got to work more.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like I need to restructure my business, or it's almost, you never consider that, hey, maybe the way I'm doing things is not the best way for me to be making money. It's always just like, well, I got to start working Saturdays, or I got to work 10 hours a day on the job, so that I got to pick up an extra job so I can make an extra 5-10 to pay for this that just died, or this that we need, instead of being like, hey, how can I make more money by potentially working less?
I completely understand the sentiment. I disagree with it, but I understand where you guys are coming from.
Disagree with it in regard to that's not the case, or that's not the right thing to do?
It's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's the right thing to do for anyone. I just think that overall the trades, most people getting into the trades are getting in because they're capped out with what they can make, and they have this ideal that they can go make X amount more working for themselves.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, income potential is a huge reason one starts a business, right? And it's like, I guess the way I look at it is, we're all objective enough as craftspeople to say, the miters on the casing keep popping. Why? Because we didn't back prime, or we used the wrong adhesive. Maybe we switch over to that epoxy or the wood weld or whatever, right? But if you want to be good at your craft, then you have a shred of objectivity to say, why are these glue ups cracking, right? This is not working. There's a problem here. We need to fix it. So it's not like it's this alien concept to do the same with your business.
Yeah, but usually
the problem is, I feel like people don't know where.
No, usually what happens is
they don't know
those miters open at the same time that you're supposed to go home and do the next pay rack for that job.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of fixing this colossal screw up, and then you go, this philosophy in your head goes, I'm not going to invoice while there's still an issue going on with the job. I'm going to wait until I solve this issue. Then your mind's completely caught up in this issue. And then you solve it. And now you're behind 2.5 weeks on invoicing. And then now you're scrambling to get that done. And then your mind's not in your game for the carpentry end of it. So then you end up screwing something else up. So it's this never ending kind of loop of how do I cut the cord and like, I'll fix those miters in the morning, but I still have to get this invoice out.
I mean, it's also, you think a company like Home Depot, right? The price that they're charging is accounting for broken material, theft, things that are getting returned, things that aren't accounted for. And like when you go to bid a job, John, Nick, how much are you putting in for like mistakes or things that you're having to redo? It like, I don't think a lot of times that in our industry, we can put enough of an overhead to cover those mistakes and to cover redoing things. So that's where, especially when you're a smaller contractor, it's like, well, I'm just going to have to go put my time into that to fix that. It's not like, you know what, I'm doing 100 cased openings. I'm going to charge to go back and do 15% of them twice because I know that there's going to be an issue with them.
And then in your mind you go, but I'm a professional, so I shouldn't have to charge to go back a couple of times. So you're like, I had this conversation this weekend, like the iPhone, you know how much it costs to make this thing or the sneakers that I'm wearing? The markup on those things are astronomical. And the markup that we charge, that we get heckled on a lot of times in our meetings for cost budgets, is minor compared to all these other objects that are out there. It's crazy that the amount of overhead and markup that's in these things. It's like overhead's like it's 300% on sneakers, whatever it is. But there's plenty of margin there. They could lose an entire container in the ocean on the way over here and not bat an eye on it. Obviously, they're going to try and correct that, but it's like that they can absorb that
because people are willing to pay $1,000 for this, but like they're not willing to pay $1,000 for, you know, if it's something that all right, I'm going to price out a built-in. It's $10,000. Well, can we spend half of that?
And go to IKEA.
It's tough, and I don't think that that's the right approach. I think that it's deeply rooted and deeply ingrained within our industry and within how people are starting businesses within our industry and with no professional business background, with no professional business knowledge. And I don't think that you know. Who are you going to for advice? The guy who has the same structured business around the corner who's going to tell you like charge $10 more an hour, which isn't helping at all. You know, it's more than that. There's more to it than just what you're charging. I think that there's so many things involved in this, and it's much deeper than that. It's tough to I think, and it's tough to kind of impact people on a larger scale than what we do. But I think that what kind of strikes me and what makes a big impact with me, Clay, is like what you said, you know, you're not going to go start any project without having a plan in place, but then you're going to start a business without having any plan in place. You know, like you don't do any, I don't get up and just walk out of the door with nothing in plan, nothing set out for the day for myself. But then, you know, when I'm 23, I'm going to start a business and be like, hey, I don't have any work on my plate. I don't know how I'm going to market myself. I don't know what I'm going to charge. I don't know what overhead is. I don't know what profit is, but you're just like, hey, screw it. You know, I'll make this work. And then you just end up working to try and make it work.
Right. And that's exactly what I did early on. You know, it was miserable.
You know, it's crazy. I was talking to my son the other day, and you would never, okay, I'm going to take it to a total different level degree. You would never attempt a Lego without the direction package. Like you just, like, there's something about that kind of structure is that, like, I'll buy a Lego. Imagine if you just lost the entire instruction packet. You'd be like, I'm not even going to get into this. There's just no way I'm going to get to it. So it's very similar to that. Is like, Hunter's like, well, it's like building a house. I'm like, I don't know, man. I wish the directions were as clear for me building a house that they are in the Legos,
Yeah.
because it would make my life easier and make my business more profitable. We're Advil for a lot of the issues that happen on a project. We're supposed to make them go away. And
But I'm gonna kick you a little bit here, because
baby.
isn't that taking the creativity out of putting that Lego set together? Is following the directions? Isn't that why you don't want to pre-do everything when you build a house? You want the creativity putting it together?
Well, I think you're probably right on that fact. But even when I was building hockey stick furniture, it made my life, I could go about it with just cutting lengths and basing it off of feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. But then it got to a point where like I was thinking of what was happening at the moment and not thinking about what the end result was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it changed how I did just the early stages of that, where there's so many components that are missing that are out of my control with the Lego, that I'm not trying to invent something there. Like I said to my son, I go, this is your $1 million idea, is if you can take something that you can scan, if you can scan anything, like my laptop, then like they have these little pixel things that they color in where like number 28, they color it and it creates this whole montage of a photo. And I'm like, you can take that, I can take a picture of you, Nick, and then it'll turn it into this thing. And they fill in all these different numbers. It's like color by numbers, but it's digital. I'm like, why can't you scan something? Like scan my office. And then it then translate into how many Lego pieces you need of this, and this. I'm like, that would be amazing. Like why you'd be like, we've talked about it in depth where you'd probably be sued by Lego, but it was more of like, how cool would it be to be able to create? That's where the creative part comes in, Nick. But on that aspect is it's not pre-built, but you're using pre-built parts to create what it is, because that's the standard of construction on that kind of level. You get me? If I was making my own parts to make that, that'd be cool. But to answer your question, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down this particular conversation, because I feel like we could go off on this for hours about the relationship to it. But I think it's more important to relate it back to Corbin. You're talking about business plan and things like that, and how in the beginning it was hell. It sucked. You didn't have this plan. You weren't working towards this end result. And it was later in your career that you did have this kind of mindset of like, I need to plan for the future.
I mean, it wasn't just one day I woke up and had this epiphany and a dream.
Of course not.
Yeah, but I was absolutely convinced I couldn't cope an inside miter the first time I did it. Absolutely convinced this is not going to work for me. I might want to reevaluate my decision in woodworking. Likewise, I was absolutely convinced that I would never understand a P&L. Absolutely freaking convinced. And I can explain a P&L to an 8-year-old now. It's no different, right? These are all learned techniques. No one is born a natural woodworker, right? It's not like football to where if you're 6'8", 300 pounds and can run a 4.2 40, like you have this genetic predisposition to being good at your job. All of our techniques are learned. It's the exact same with business. And I'd be remiss if I didn't drive that point home. There's this sentiment that it's just too complicated. It's too cumbersome. It's too scary. I don't know anything about it. There's absolutely no way out, and I can relate to that. I've sat in that storm a lot, in the early days of the company, until you realize that your coping saw is dog shit. You got to go buy a good coping saw. Hey, your blade is too loose. And then you ask somebody who knows how to cope, and they say, no, speed it up. Yeah, there you go, speed it up.
We're going to use that for the promo.
Please do, yeah. Corbin's going to talk technique. But you know what I mean? You acknowledge you don't know what the hell you're doing, and then you ask somebody for help. Or you start to research yourself, right? Watch a YouTube video on how to cope a frigging inside miter properly. I guess not a miter at that point. We would always back miter, but anyway, you understand what I mean? And like I said, I would be remiss if I didn't really drive home the fact that as intimidating it is, as helpless as you might feel, and like, this is never going to end. I can't just start saying no to things so I could then work on my specialty. Like, that's so counterintuitive, right? It's like, no, I need money. I need to say yes to every single project out there. But there's actually a way of doing that. And it's much more complicated than 30 minutes within a 3-hour podcast. But there's in fact a way of doing it, and we can do it, but we just need to check these several boxes, and then before you know it, it's done. And you're clocking out after 8 hours, and you've got 3 months worth of work, and your bills are paid, but it all comes back to making some type of plan, creating standards around that plan, and then slowly filling each individual one of those boxes. Nick, it sounds like you've done exactly this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're incredibly quiet and calm throughout this part of the conversation, because it sounds like, yeah, no, I've done exactly that, and turns out it's not as hard.
I think that there's also a big jump from, it's almost like, where's that direction coming from, right? Because it's very easy to say my goal is to have, be able to dip off at lunchtime to go play hockey. I want to be able to do what I want to do if I want to wear a suit one day. But then I think that it's almost, what's that direction? Where's your first move? Where are you looking to go? How do I get there? Because having the goal in mind and having the end goal of the plan in place, now filling out and connecting all of those. It's not even just connecting those dots at that point. It's developing those dots and those points, and developing that plan. And again, it's going to be an organic growth, an organic plan that you're kind of cultivating there. It's not like you're coming up with plan day one, and now all you got to do is just go from A to B to C, and you're going to be there. But I think that it's starting that first step and then figuring out the direction that you need to be and what's the critical path to success there is very difficult for people who aren't business minded and who got into this, for the sake of the craft and because this was just the way that they thought they were going to be able to make money.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly difficult. But so is your trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing that coming up with a plan does, I remember my very first employee, Patrick. I remember articulating to him, and I probably should not have hired Patrick, because about 2.5 months in, I couldn't afford his paycheck. And I'd have a sit down with him to say, dude, I'm crying, by the way. Not like sobbing, but I felt like I let my dude down. He shows up every day on time, and I didn't do my job in making sure he has a paycheck. So I just told him, like, I don't have money for your paycheck, my man. And, you can do whatever you feels appropriate. If you want to tell me fuck off and find a new job, I would tell me to fuck off. But as I articulated on your very first day we met on your interview, this is what we're here to do. We are here to reclaim as much wood as possible from these dead forests. We're here to create as many jobs as possible from this negative situation. And if those two things work, and our pricing is correct, and our little machine works to where our overhead recovery is correct and our profit is correct, then the third is we all can make a little money off that. That's why I started that. That is what I have worked every day to do and will continue to work every day to do. If you want to bounce, I totally get it. But if you want to stay on board, rest assured I'll keep busting my ass to hold up my end of the bargain. You are doing that as well. Didn't bat an eye, said, I'll be here tomorrow, no problem. And that's a testament to Patrick's character, obviously. But it's also a testament to having a borderline delusional concept of what your business is in your head, even though you're nowhere friggin' close to it. Planning for that vision, articulating that to yourself, your peers, your employees, your customers. And then again, this is a much more complicated, thing because it's so circumstantial to each individual business, manufacturing versus site work like you guys do, on and on and on. It's incredibly contextual. But when you start letting that plan inform every single decision of yours, then it does in fact have this way of forcing you and your business to adhere to that plan. Because say you start saying no to that complex work. There was a veneer table we did. We're not a friggin' veneer shop. We said yes to it. I knew we shouldn't have said yes to it. All of my worst projects where I absolutely lost my ass, the second I said yes, I thought I should not have done that. I should have said no. But the best decision I ever made was starting to say no. Because what you don't realize is every single time we delivered a piece of furniture to a customer, they were ready to order another one. So instead of saying yes to this veneer project, why didn't I take the entire next day and email every single customer I'd ever delivered a piece of furniture to say, I hope you're loving your dining table. I remember you mentioning that vanity you wanted to do. We just had a cancellation, now have an opening in our production schedule. What say you? We'd love to do some more work for you. Right? So once you identify that specialty and say, this is what we do, and this is what we do well, and this is what we're going to continue to focus on. There's this idea that, well, we can't just say no. Like if we're lucky enough for a project to fall in our lap, we got to friggin' say yes, because I got payroll due next week and my man hasn't been paid in, 2 payrolls. But like that example I just gave about the cold emails, and it's different for everybody, but there is in fact a way of saying no while somehow also increasing your top line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what kind of sticks out to me in that, so you're obviously taking risks in this situation, and for me, what kind of strikes me is that you hired an employee when you couldn't really afford an employee, and what was the reason for doing so? Like, did you just need the manpower? Because I feel like that first employee for everyone is such a huge leap, right? And like, especially with what we do, it's like, you can't afford anyone. You can't afford anyone. And then finally, it's just like, I got to hire somebody. And then you find out how to make it work. But it's like, for me to hire somebody that then I couldn't make payroll for him scares the living hell out of me. And like, how do you go and hire somebody without having 100% assurance that you're going to be able to support them? Because like, they're investing in you and they're not coming for a short-term job.
No, it's scary, man. Those first couple are scary. We had 2 different circumstances to where we'd have, these hotels we would do, they'd take 6 months to make a decision. You know what I mean? So we had structured our year's production schedule. But then lo and behold, that project got pushed back 6 months to where now we have 3 hotels at the same time in the shop with 5 people. All right, friggin' hire. We've got plenty of money in the bank. Just start hiring, because again, this shop is run on systems, not necessarily technique. There's obviously a lot of technique involved, but a lot of it was very entry level because we invested in technology. So scale up quickly, right? We have the money in the bank. Let's do it. That's one situation that obviously makes it a pretty easy decision when it's time to hire somebody. The other one, it's scary and it's a giant risk. I communicated that to Pat right up front. I said, I don't know if you will always have a job here, because I really don't know what the hell I'm doing, at the time. But I'm willing to train you to be a woodworker. And I think we could have a lot of fun here and do some projects together. What say you, right? You just be completely open and transparent with it.
Did you ever ask Patrick in hindsight why he ended up taking the job with you? Because that doesn't seem like a very amazing job opportunity when you're going in when you're on the interview and the guy says, I don't know if I'm always going to have a job for you.
Yep. No, my, the guy, his name's David, that hired me for my apprenticeship, said that verbatim to me in the project. And or in the interview. And that's where I got that from. Because I thought, this guy's leveling with me, which means he at the very least respects me to shoot me straight. And I thought, I want to make people I interview feel the way this guy's making me feel.
It's funny.
So no, Pat and I are still good buddies. What's that?
I'm gonna cut you off. It's funny. I think about, there was a few hires I made, like Ken, for example, was one where it was a new division. We were gonna start building cabinetry, and I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't know if I'm always gonna have cabinetry work for you. And thankfully that was never true. It was, it was like the floodgates opened up when he was in. But there was a few guys that I had hired, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it will always, I'll always have this work for you. So we'll just kind of keep you, bounce you around and keep you busy. And it's funny how I never thought of it as leveling with them. I just was like, listen, I'm being honest with you, and if you don't want to take the risk, don't take the risk. But this is my, same thing. It's like, this is my plan, and if you believe in it, I believe in it. So let's go.
One thing that my production manager and I would do in interviews, especially with entry-level apprenticeship woodworkers, we do an apprenticeship every summer, is, we'd get dozens of people applying for this apprenticeship. We were real big on Instagram. People moved to Denver because Denver rocks. And, we had a lot of people that wanted to get into woodworking. The only thing we would talk about in those interviews is how miserable production woodworking is. Boys, it's going to be 100 degrees back there. You got to take those 500 boards and feed them through that planer, eat lunch, flip them over, feed them through again. And then you'd have guys that go, oh, that's neat. You're out. But then you'd have the guys that go, yeah, okay. If that's what needs to be done, of course, I want to learn. You don't get to be executive chef day one. You got to go chop potatoes in the back for 6 months. And then maybe we'll let you come out and dress salads. Then you're going to fuck those up. You're back to chopping potatoes. I want the guy that's willing to chop potatoes, because he's not chopping potatoes. He's working on his knife skills. He's understanding the difference between dice and chop. It's not just we did hundreds of thousands of pieces for this company called Artifact Uprising. We basically made all their wood pieces. So there's little blocks of wood with a groove in it. They put pictures in, right? But huge volume. And I would tell my guys, I understand that this is mind-numbingly boring. You just running a slider all day long for 3 weeks. But you need to be listening to what that slider is telling you. We'd have guys put too much pressure on it to where every time it go through, it'd go at the end because they're putting too much pressure on the saw blade. So my production manager and myself would go out there and say, when we're doing that miter on that walnut countertop, and this thing has to be absolutely perfect with no tear out, you can't hear that, right? So you need to be using this monotony to be listening to the machines talking to you, to be seeing what it smells like when it cuts. They said Anthony Bourdain could tell the temperature of a steak from the sound of the sizzle. And that's what I would tell them. I know this is monotonous, but it's monotonous if you choose for it to be monotonous, or you could realize how cool this is, that you're getting to log thousands of hours of doing this one thing so you could absolutely master it. It's all about framing and contextualizing it. Nick, to your point.
You sold me. I'm in. When do I start?
I'd be bored after 35 minutes.
No, I'd crush it an extra hour out of it. It's like opening a package and be like, what's the it's 4 hours is what they say, the advised time to put this together. I'm like, I got this in 2.
That's what I'm saying.
So whatever you give me, I'll crush it, move on.
I'm more enamored by the fact that he could tell what temperature the steak was by the sizzle. I'm sitting there with a digital thermometer poking the thing 17 times.
Fine.
I gotta cook more steak.
But it's like all of us. It's like if you don't know this environment, right. But you're right. It's not just. We joked about the intern I had, where I wanted him just to watch the stair guys, and he found himself he wanted to take on baseboard in a closet, whatever it was. It's like you miss the fact is that it starts by being on that site sweeping floors, because you hear the terms. They're not new to you when they actually are fired at you to do something. You hear everything that's going on. You hear the tempo, the speed, how everything works. When something falls, Like I remember I was on a job site last week, and I went down the ladder, and you look around, is the ladder stable? What's going? You don't take anything for granted. It's like you ever see me walk a house? Like I never lean up against the railing. I always give a little hip check first. Like you just always want to know what's going on, but that doesn't happen day one. And if you're not willing to take advantage of just being in that environment, and then taking it all and absorbing it, and then figuring out how to navigate it, that's how it should be done. And I love that whole pep talk. I might just use that tomorrow. I'm not going to hire anybody.
Guys,
I might just use it.
No, I mean, there's an honor to what we do, and it should be friggin' taken seriously. You know what I mean? Especially when you start involving other people's money. And if you communicate that to your team to say, no, you don't get to use that machine yet. You haven't earned it. But here's exactly how you can earn it. Awesome. And now you got a guy marching down that path saying, not only my dad, every time he'd start a new job, he'd say, what's the typical, Johnny, just like you, he'd say, what's the typical, onboarding time for an employee? And they'd say, 3 months. He's like, cool, I'll do it in half.
Yep.
Because fuck you, I'll do it in half. You know what I mean? And it was just like, what kind of attitude is that? That's friggin' awesome. But if you find those types of people to work with you in the vision that you have for your business, and let me give a very important disclaimer. I am terrible at hiring people. You will never see a video of me talking about how to build a team because I am objectively bad at it, which is one of the reasons I sold the company. We had a lot of turnover, and I am a terrible manager. I'm very impatient. I'm very impulsive. I have all the things that make a bad manager a bad manager. And fortunately, I realized that, which is one of the reasons we hired a production manager and hired an office manager and this and that. But there are ways, even for me, who's so bad at it, to find good people. Like I was saying about only talking about the worst parts of the job. And then you get people that are still leaning in, and you say, okay, I think we'll do all right here. You know what I mean? Like it's not this impossible code to crack.
It's amazing to me how many times you were able to recognize something. Whether it's a flaw, whether it's like I'm writing down all these things. Like you were able to create a business, obviously, while you were doing something else. Figure out how to get, like we just breezed over, like how to even. Like, did you just start cutting down, dead trees in your backyard, and then ask the neighbor for their trees, and then ask the neighbor of their neighbor, or did you start just stealing trees from the national park? Like we didn't talk about that, but that all took kind of time to do. Yes. And navigate, and then being able to come up with a business plan, get a shop up and running, hire some people, then be able to pull far enough away to go, you know what, I'm gonna call people and create a little advisor board. And then I'm going to also talk to legislature to see if I can get, to see if these will be lead points, because this will work with this. We haven't touched on how you even got these hotel gigs or other brands that buy, 8,000 pieces of product that hold up pictures. Like, to do all that, people just struggle building a shop out.
Yep.
And you've been able to do all that. And then the flip side of that is then you sold it. And now you started the podcast with me going, you're retired. And I'm like, all right, so do I take the headphones off now and walk out, or do I stick around?
I mean, the fact that you were obvious, I guess the fact that the pine was coming from within the United States was a huge perk to be able to make this stuff in the United States. But I would say the percentage of companies who are making stuff like that, it's very few and far between to be doing production style work within the United States as well. As far as furniture,
everything.
Yeah, I mean,
China,
especially wood, like most of that stuff's made overseas at this point on any sort of scale. Like I think that it's a lot of the stuff that's made within the country, especially, I mean, most of it's not sustainable from within the country, but it's small boutique type of things. It's not like we're going to be able to scale and source enough stuff to deliver this amount and in this amount of time. Usually that's all done overseas.
Yeah, but people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? Well, Johnny, at Vintage Builders, are you selling somebody a remodeled kitchen, or are you selling them quality? Are you selling them integrity? Amazon doesn't sell consumer goods, they sell convenience. Apple doesn't sell electronics, they sell irreverence. They sell this contrarian mindset. Think different is their friggin' logo or slogan. At Azure, we didn't sell furniture. We sold the ability to be part of this solution that is bumming everyone in this region out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of what I built, but I can't take that much credit for it because, I was lucky enough to find a need and to structure it properly. But I would just encourage everybody to think of what problem for the customer you're solving, right? Think of what product you're actually selling, as opposed to just the kitchen remodel. Maybe you're just selling punctuality. Every other trade on this project showed up late and you're the only one on time. Thank you for respecting me and my schedule. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to be that guy.
Nope.
I wish I was the punctual one, but
you know what I mean though?
Good things take time. No, I'm with you. It's just, I just would love to know. It's like, I want to hear this stupid, like, I meditate every morning so I can start doing that. Just give me the simple thing that gave you the ability.
Now you sound like everyone else. What's the secret?
No, but it's like, seriously, like okay, a lot of people see the need for something and go, that's cool. All those trees are there. I want to find something. But then they usually fall flat because they can't build a cool product that people will buy, or they can't put the shop together. And I've always used the analogy. I love business plans. Like, I love this stuff because I've always said to people, if you want to run to like a friend's house and you start running through the woods to get to that person's house, you won't know how to get there. But if you were to like, let me get like Google Maps and look at it, you know what, you'll go. And if you want to then, hit a detour and do that, you'll be able to get back on track. Where Waze has eliminated that. Before we used to have map books, but now it's like, imagine going somewhere without a map. Like, there's no way you're going to get there. And if you do, you're going to have to sacrifice something, whether it's your time, whether it's your money, whether it's the product, whatever it is. It's like clients that come to me now and go, hey, someone called me today and like, they don't have a design. I go, you got to start there but before we just laughed, but before 15 years ago, I absolutely be like, yeah, let me swing by. I'll sketch something up. I'll do it on the spot and not get paid. And I thought that was the way to do it. But now it's like, no, that's crazy. I wasn't like arrogant and be like, what are you calling me for? It was more like, guys, you can't start this process without a plan. And I know you don't know that. Like, my wife and I talk about it all the time because she works with some other designers and they're getting calls all the time about, what do I do for this? And I want to spend 15 grand. And they're like, well, that's the design fee. And I'm like, guess what? They don't know. And my wife and I are sitting at the kitchen table, like late night talking. And I'm like, you need to educate them. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, they just don't know. You can't just get them off the phone. I'm like, they need to buy into your design, whether it's 10 grand right now or 15 grand, buy that. Then they can go shop it to whatever it is, Angie's List, contractors, stuff like that. You can't go to, I know it's popular. You shouldn't be able to go to those places, those websites, and find contractors without having spent 5 to 15 grand on a design to show someone, hey, color in this color by numbers. Okay. It's like giving someone that picture and not giving the numbers on it. Like, I have this room. I want it to look like something in my head that you don't know. And then give me a ballpark and you wonder why it's a recipe for disaster. Like, they should hire this person right now. Even if they can't afford it, now you've learned that, hey, I'm going to spend 10 grand on this design. Now I have to save up for the next 3 years to hire anyone I want, because now someone will oversee it for me, not just a GC. Sorry, I went down.
That's it. No, but you just fixed that problem. Just now, you fixed that problem. Our superpower as experts is to predict the future for people. Now, there are two different ways of doing it, right? You could say, hey, fuckface, you're not even close to this. Come back with the real problem, click. Or there's a way to say, love where your head's at. This kitchen's going to be gorgeous. We found in the past that it's best to incorporate a professional kitchen designer because they know exactly how much landing area should be on either side of the stove, you know, blah, 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 blah. We work with this person often. Why don't you chat with them? What's your budget, by the way? $15K. Okay. The cheapest remodel we've ever done, you've seen our work, you've been on our webpage. The cheapest kitchen remodel we've ever done is $35,000. So we might want to reevaluate the budget. And if you can't do it now, that's totally fine because we'll still be here in 2 years when you are ready. You see what I mean?
And people, exactly. It's what I was on with my wife. Exactly the same thing.
But
It's
just
like,
do that. I mean, you
yeah.
just
But you know what's crazy? This is another thing I thought about this weekend. I did a lot of thinking this weekend. Was that it's easy for us from outside to solve these problems. It's ridiculous to me when I jump on the phone with somebody and like, well, I do this. It's like, well, that's wrong. Like that. But yet I will run around all week and at the end of the week be like, fuck, what is my problem? And it's like, I hate the fact that I just need. So my whole point that I questioned was, what was elevating you while you were building all this up to be able to still have the hindsight to stop and be able to correct these errors before you turn the fuckface guy into a nightmare and killed that company?
Because I was miserable, because I was broke, because I was working around the clock. You know, I realized this isn't working. How many glue ups are you going to do where the seams are popping until you finally stop and say, this is not friggin' working? You know what I mean? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's acknowledging. There's this concept called bold humility, to where it's grab what you're good at and own it, right? Everybody in this conversation is really good at something. But just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at the other things. So you have to acknowledge what you suck at. And I hate the phrase, like, surround yourself with best people. It's like, well, what if you can't friggin' afford those people, you know? And it's just kind of this, like, it's just kind of watered down of like, oh, to build a good organization, you just need to have customers, be profitable, build a good team. You're like, yeah, that's great. But how? It's midnight. I got to deliver this piece tomorrow morning. I'm YouTubing how to do bent laminations. And turns out I've got the wrong adhesive anyway, so it's going to pop in 6 months. And I got to, you know, it's all way more complicated than just saying, oh, create a plan, execute the plan, be profitable, sell your company, retire at 38. Like, obviously that's not it. I mean, we're talking about 10 years of lessons here, right? But when you just acknowledge, which I would safely assume we all do as craftspeople, this is not friggin' working. These shark bites are leaking over and over and over again. And again, shark bite, don't sue me. I don't know anything about your company.
They're a sponsor. My whole house is filled with
I was going to say, have you been listening to John's plumbing updates?
No, I just you know what I mean? But just to say, like, what the hell? This is not friggin' working. What, are you just going to keep doing it? No. You're going to stop and you're going to evaluate something. What is leaking? It's not the PEX. It's not the fixture. It's the fitting. Okay, we need to reevaluate this specific fitting. How is that any different than your pricing structure? How is that any different than the time with which you respond to customers when they, or potential customers when they reach out to you? Why aren't I winning any estimates? Are my prices too high? Am I not being accommodating? Am I not advocating on their behalf? Again, these are the experiments that we can run in a very agile business. We're not Chevrolet. We didn't sign up for $250 million worth of ads. And then day 3, they're dog shit, but we just have to stick with it because, you know, we've signed all these contracts with CNBC and everybody else. No, we can be agile. We can say, this is not friggin' working. And if I don't know how to fix it, I need to ask somebody that does know how to fix it. I mean, that's the best answer I can give, John.
I like it. I dig it.
So let's get to when you sold the company, and let's start with why you sold the company, because you touched on it in the beginning of the podcast, and you just touched on it again about, you know, not being a good manager. So you built this company to, you know, from yourself building nightstands to, let's really quickly touch on how big the company was, and then let's get into why you sold.
Yeah, so we were doing 7 figures top line, putting 3 figures or 6 figures rather to the bottom line consistently the last, I'd say, 3 years. I mean, getting there sucked, right? But, I was hemorrhaging employees and I didn't know why. And my production manager and I went out for dinner one night and he basically just said, "You're a dick. Like, you're just kind of a dick." And I know that I, might not be the most, soft around the edges person, but I was really surprised. I was just like, really? And he was like, "Yeah, man, like, you can't say those kinds of things to people." And I'm just like, but no, but like specifically what? Dude, I never cursed at work. I never called anybody names. I mean, I'm not Gordon Ramsay back there. I mean, I was genuinely like dumbfounded that that was the feedback from my one manager. And, he's just kind of like, "Yeah, nobody really wants to work here much longer." And I said, "Well, that's not cool. Like, that hurts, because I thought I was doing a good job of it. But also, I can understand where they are. I mean, I'm not allowed to say bullshit, that's not a problem, because it has nothing to do with me. If that's how they feel, then that's how they feel. And I need to acknowledge it. And I didn't think that, one, I was capable of making that change as quickly as it needed to be made. Two, well, so that was obviously a big one, right? Not to just like move on quickly to two. Like that was a big smack in the face. And kudos to my production manager, Neil, for saying that. Because I had no idea. Because customers love me. You know what I mean? I was out doing
the next day.
Yeah. Hey, Neil, if you're listening, hope you're still unemployed. No, Neil's a good dude. He and I still keep in touch. But it caught me so off guard. And I'm usually pretty aware of my surroundings. It caught me so off guard. I thought, this is a very big problem that I've got that I don't know if I'll be able to fix in the meantime. Two, the fix to that would be potentially hiring a COO to where I'm completely pulled out of the day-to-day business. I read Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia. I read his book, People Surf, I think it's called. And I'm reading this and I'm just like, man, fuck this guy. Like, fuck this guy. His whole thing is MBA, management by absence, to where he's like, "Hey, I'm fishing in the Yellowstone for 6 months. Don't call me." And I thought, that's all fine and dandy. I don't want to work for someone like that. So if I hire a COO to where I, the owner, am not to be ever called, I don't want to work for someone like that. Why would anybody else? And then thirdly, I felt I had achieved what I'd set out to do with the beetle kill. We had established this creative solution to 4 million acres of dead pine trees. We got a bunch of happy customers. We got a bunch of reclaimed wood. My second goal of being able to choose what I did every day was boring. It's like the dog finally caught the car. Now what? Like the chase is the exciting part. So then I tried to sell the company a couple years before, and I did a valuation with it was some public service. I want to say it was like the Chamber of Commerce or some shit. And this was before we were making any real money, and I wasn't paying myself anything. I paid myself $12K for 3 years, I think, which is under the poverty line, by the way. And he was saying, we're doing the balance sheet, and he's like, "Well, what's your bottom line for the last 3 years, trailing 36?" And I was like, "Well, we made 40 grand this year, 55 the next year, and then 70 the next year. Bottom line, everything's done. That was profit." And I was all proud of myself, because we made $70,000. And he goes, "Cool, what'd you pay yourself?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. Let's look here. $12,418. He says, "Okay, what would it cost you to hire you within your organization, someone with your skill set and background?" And I said, "Probably minimum 80,000, if not 100. And he goes, "Okay, your company's worth nothing." I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "Your company's worth nothing, because if you take you out of it, then you would have to spend that 70,000 profit on a production manager or DO or whatever. So then you would have made zero money that year. So your company is worth nothing. I thought, well, this guy's a bit of an asshole, isn't he? But I just remember thinking, like, man, that sucks. Again, it was just all these tidal waves of me realizing I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then acknowledging that, and then trying to figure out what to do next, right? Okay, what makes a business valuable? Bottom line, not assets necessarily. Again, this is all, very circumstantial. How much income is this business generating every year for me to use discretionarily as the owner? That's what makes a business profitable, or a business attractive to a potential buyer. Okay, cool. If I want to sell this company, then that's what I'm going to spend the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years doing, because that's the goal, and that's what we are going to use to inform every decision.
So, how much did you sell it for? That's what we all want to ask.
A gentleman never tells. Let's just say,
that was how many years before you sold?
This was 4 years before I sold the company.
So then you turned things around relatively quickly.
Well,
do you think that you were like on that trajectory already, or you put things into place that really changed things that dramatically?
Yes.
Which one?
I think...
No, both. No, so I think here's a perfect example. The biggest project we ever had at the company was this hotel down in Colorado Springs, right? They reached out to us out of nowhere because they saw beetle kill, and they really wanted to use beetle kill in their Colorado project. It was a developer out of California, but they, obviously, like marketing and branding and shit, they're like, beetle kill, environment, cool. This is the company. Our brand and photography were gorgeous compared to the other handful of people in town doing beetle kill. We smushed all of them just with our image. So we were taken seriously right off the bat. I had previously just launched an entire commercial section to say, here's all the high volume contract work we've done in the past. So anyway, they called up and said, hey, we want to do this hotel, 3-month lead time, all beetle kill, 138 keys. Right off the bat, because I knew what I was doing, I said, there's absolutely no way we can do 138 rooms full of furniture out of beetle kill pine. We were getting into the mud season to where the loggers can't get up there. There's just all these issues with it showing up wet. Sometimes it's 30% moisture, other times it's 5% moisture. There's absolutely no way, that we'll be able to produce this in time. Now, 5 years earlier, I may have just hung up the phone. But that particular conversation, I said, however, there's this whole group of wood that the industry has referred to as rustic that we have all deemed too ugly to use in furniture, be it, the sapwood and walnut, knots and walnut, right? I think it's something like only 10% of domestic walnut is actually used, for the A1 sheet goods and the, I forget the hardwood grading. But anyway, I said, however, there's this, rustic oak, basically any defect bigger than that of a dime renders the entire piece of wood unusable for high-end furniture or high-end cabinetry. We think that's horseshit. So while we can't use beetle kill for your project, there's still this other huge problem in the industry that you could help participate in a pretty creative solution for. What say you? And they go, fucking cool. Yeah. Okay, great. 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have said that. I may have just said, beetle kill is too hard to do. Sorry, we can't help. And they go, okay, what a bummer. See you later. And they, order from somebody overseas or something. So I think that certainly helped, learning. When you hang up the phone, and I'll probably do this the rest of the night and the rest of the week on this podcast, like, God, why did I say that? Why didn't I bring up this anecdote? Why didn't I say this? I'm sure we've all done that before in talking to a customer, you know what I mean? Maybe a deal falls through because you guys, say you're 100K off, and it's like, we could have figured out where to save that 100. Do you need this fixture? Do you need soft close everywhere? What's that?
Sorry, how about like 84K off?
Oh, did I hit a nerve?
No.
But you know what I mean, right?
I do it every day. If I go to a meeting and I'm with one of my guys, whether it's a client meeting, whether it's a subcontractor, and whatever the result is, whatever the communication is, I'll ask whoever was with me on my team and go, what do you think? You know, what would you have changed in that conversation? What would you have done differently, or whatever it is? I used to do it with Benny all the time. Now I'm not with Benny, as much. So it's like whoever is with me in that meeting, or if it's on a Zoom, it's usually the first thing that comes out of my mouth is like, what would you have changed? A, it gives me insight into what their head's at, but B, I don't want to have that situation that you had with your, your shop guy. You're an asshole.
Yeah.
Because I feel like all day I'm holding back the asshole to be the nice guy, and maybe sometimes they're bleeding into each other, and I'm just not catching any wind of it.
Dude, I thought I was holding back, and then I got called an asshole. I just said,
Right?
man, okay.
Did you
I'm
get a
out for
second
it.
opinion? I feel like you're gonna get a second opinion on that. I don't know, man.
So in my defense, we did do anonymous reviews one year.
You do a survey?
We did, yeah. Well, it wasn't like a drafted survey, but we did anonymous reviews, and it was about 50-50. So I think Neil may have just had a bone to pick with me personally, because that was very hard on him.
50-50 is
50-50
still
is pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's yes.
Hey,
Because the other,
you guys are,
probably 45% of the 50 who said no
Didn't want to say
weren't going to say no because he's going to recognize our handwriting.
Yep. No, so
it's got my
You
name
might as
on it.
well have gotten 95.
you guys are making my case for me.
What was the biggest complaint?
I totally get where they're coming from too, is that I would the problem is that sometimes when we as the founders of the companies finally get to a point where we have teams of people working for us, we start to do management by abdication as opposed to management by delegation, right? You start saying, this sucks, I don't want to do it, you go do it. As opposed to, this is what is necessary to be done. I'll do this, you do this. Everybody has a little bit of the shitty parts. So, but we're all going to work on crap together, and then eventually we'll get through it. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
I mean, does that make you an asshole though?
I see. That's what I'm saying, man. I remember talking to my wife about it, and I'm just like,
It's not like there's like two of you there, and it's like, oh, you're gonna shovel the shit the whole time. Like there's an entire group of people there, and there's people at the bottom, and there's people at the top. Like at that point, realistically, you shouldn't be down to like at that point. It's like you should be doing bigger things for the company, making them more money than that.
Hey, it's the delivery.
And I probably didn't do a good job of communicating. That. I'll second guess all this till I'm blue in the face, but I think that I was just so friggin' tired by the end of it.
I feel like patience has a lot to do with it. Like lack of patience, I feel like makes people think that you're an asshole. Where it's like I just don't have the patience for it anymore.
Oh, and that's the thing anymore, right? That's the thing they don't realize. It's like, look, we only have $5,000 in the bank, and I've got a 12,000 payroll draw on Friday because this customer hasn't paid yet because their net 15 apparently to them means net 120. Forgive me for being on edge, but I want to make sure you have a friggin' paycheck.
They usually draw it on Wednesday too.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever payroll's Monday, it gets drawn Wednesday. So it's like you don't even have till Friday.
And that's the thing. It's like it got to the point where I'm just like, you guys have absolutely no idea what's on my plate. And you have the fucking nerve to come in and critique me.
Yeah, you're an asshole.
Yeah. that is the exact opposite of a mindset that a leader of a company should have.
Right.
Right?
But it's so hard to separate yourself from that when you're that involved with the inner working of a company and that much stress is on your shoulders and all the pressure's on you. It's so hard to step away from that and just be like, you know what? You screwed that up 3 times in a row. Try it a 4th time. Let's see what happens. Like it's progress at this point.
Yep.
Like, well, the other part of it is if you have too much patience, then you eat yourself alive on your way home.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you know what? I let that fucking go again. Because then when you do look at the books later that night or over the weekend, and you're like, that fucker's costing me more money again.
Or
So
he
guess
just
what?
took off. Yo, he just went on a week-long vacation.
Yeah.
He's snowboarding right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And then
like,
you're
I'm
dealing with
doing
more shrapnel.
this, sweating it out.
It doesn't make the whole animosity any less for the next week that comes down the line, where you're like, all right, how do I navigate this? And it's just as bad for us. We don't have as many employees as probably you had, but it's like the subcontractors. You hear people go, well, you know, back charging for this. It's like, yo, I got him on 3 other projects.
Yeah.
So what am I back charging? You're just going to charge it across the other 3 houses I have. So it's like you're not using one dedicated, you know, framer for this house and you have a different one for each thing. It's like, no, you have these products and you're spread out, and it's not as easy as just being a tough guy and putting the hammer down and going, it's my way or the highway. Because guess what? The market's so saturated with work is that they can go somewhere else. They don't need you. We need them more than anything else. And it's really hard to navigate it without being
deep down. I hate you, but I need you.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're all
a pretty healthy business.
You know, but no,
it's
that's
every day of my life,
right? And I talked to the former COO of one of our big partners, and I was just like, so what is a COO? Because I don't know. I never worked in the only job I ever had was at the Gap warehouse in my hometown in Ohio, right? Like, I never worked for a proper company. I don't know C-level as opposed to VP and all this stuff. So she's like, wait, seriously? I'm like, yeah, I'm very embarrassed to say this, but could you just elaborate on what a COO's responsibilities are? And she goes through the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. That's what I need. I need one of those. And I was like, what do one of them COOs make? She's like, oh, 120. Okay, a few years away from that. So I'm gonna have to tail between my legs, go back and keep doing my breathing exercises in my office to not yell at people. But no, that was the decision, right? It's like, okay, one of the big moves I made was when we had a proper production manager. I would be sitting in my office wondering why the sander's not going. I'm trying to do a proposal or come up with a design or come up with our new marketing collateral for our new program or whatever it is. And I'm saying, I've done what they're doing 1,000 times. Why is there so much quiet back there when we should be sanding? And then I just start stewing.
Yeah.
Absolutely stewing, right? And then you pick up the phone to text the production manager, be like, so what? And then you hear it start. You go, okay, crisis averted. But I'm just like, this is not healthy.
Yeah, it's not crisis averted.
Wait, hold on.
Because you've added up those minutes, and then the same thing happens tomorrow. And you're like, okay, by Friday, that's a whole fucking day.
Yeah.
So production manager is not off the hook yet because you're still tallying that time.
Or it's like I show up to the job and it's like, all right, you don't know what to do now. What the heck did you do before I got here? Like,
yes,
I don't get it. Now that I'm here, you don't just do what you were doing. You were more than capable beforehand. Just continue with it. Like, I feel like that's an issue with all employees where like the structure of my business is when I'm on the job, I'm the boss. I take the lead, but like, that's my own fault that I've created that kind of system within the business. But it's like, no, now that I'm here, you can continue to do what you were doing. You don't have to like drop everything and give me a hand. Like almost pretend like I'm not here. Like pretend like I never showed up. It's so tough. I think that it takes a very special someone when you're not business oriented, when you do bring that business up from kind of ground zero, and when you have so much stake in it and so much care about the finished product, to let that stuff go. It builds a ton of resentment. It builds you have such a lack of patience. You know what things should take, how smoothly it should go. And it's super tough to sit back and just let it all play out.
So I didn't have a cell phone for a year in the business, and one of the points.
What are you doing?
No. So my phone broke, right, and we were so busy, And this is when we had like a good team. We had an office manager that would handle most inbound sales. We had a production manager handling most of the day-to-day building, and I was doing outside sales. And we were putting together the marketing collateral for this new program we were releasing. And my cell phone broke. And I never had the chance to go out and get it fixed. So, 3 days go by, 5 days go by, a week goes by. I send an email to everybody saying, hey, I don't have cell phones, so just shoot me an email if you need to get a hold of me. And then after a week or so, I was just like, this is kind of nice. And then my team would be like, hey, what do we need to do here? And it's just like, look, you guys are really good at your jobs. Just make a decision. Like, we'll figure it out. I've made the wrong decision plenty of times. I probably know how to fix your wrong decision. But if not, we got a little money in the bank. We got a good runway ahead of us. Just make a decision. Like, I trust you. And that's why, guys, it broke my heart so much when they said that they didn't like working with me. Because I'm just like, man, I don't know what else to do. Like, I just empowered you. I did everything Jeffrey Weiner at LinkedIn talks about. I'm channeling Simon Sinek here, like empathy and all this shit. And it's just like, maybe this just isn't my gig. So yeah, back to the original question, hired a broker, did evaluation, and listed the company and sold.
But to go from, let me just map this out for a second. To go in that first broker meeting to making or drawing $12,000 a year, fast forward 4 years, you were able to sell the company and retire at the age of 38.
Yeah,
Be snake oil.
Because I had 6 years of data to work off of.
So what you did is you took the data, the 6 years of data, and basically from the time that you realized your company was worth nothing, you spent the next 4 years building it to be worth something.
Yes, because you ask, okay, why is my company worth nothing? Because you don't have any profit. Okay, what does profit mean? What does profit mean?
Surplus money after you're done.
No, but seriously, not you guys, business sage that told me my business is worth nothing, right? I'm just like, okay, I don't have any profit. I see that as 70K to the bottom line, but I don't feel like I'm making any money. I don't remember that 70,000 just sitting in the bank account one day.
Right.
You're saying that the company's not worth anything because I'm not paying myself. So explain to me what this concept of profit is. And he was like, well, you're either not charging enough or your expenses are too high. I mean, that's kind of all it is, right? If your COGS are all out of whack, cost of goods sold. If your COGS are all out of whack, it doesn't really matter what you're charging. If you have a 5% gross, good luck after all your internal profit leaks getting anything reasonable to hit the bottom line at the end of the year, right?
Right.
So it was basically that. And again, I don't want this to sound like some alien concept that I decided to do some forensics on my business, because we all do it as craftsmen with our respective trades. Right? It's the exact same thing. Why is this joint popping? We need to reevaluate. Why don't I have any money? We need to reevaluate. And there's 1,000 different answers to that question, but there's one right answer. My situation, I wasn't charging enough. I wasn't charging anywhere near enough. And then we finally did an overhead recovery, a proper overhead recovery, which I've got a video on my webpage. I started a video blog because I don't want to type all this shit out, and I'd much rather just talk, as awkward as it is. But it goes through the details of a proper overhead recovery rate to where you know exactly what you need to be billing every hour to bare minimum recoup your costs, your hard, overhead egg. And we would actually pad that with a 15% margin just in case my numbers were off. So that was the very first thing I did, was say, I have absolutely no idea. I know how much I need to pay everything every month, but I have no idea how, if I've got 2 guys pitching and catching on the planer, 1 guy sitting in a truck going up to the mill, and another guy spraying a table that we've sold, where to even start doing the accounting on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a bunch of research and YouTube videos and reach out to my neighbor was a roofer. And I said, a real successful roofer. I said, how do you guys do your pricing? And he said, this is this. I was like, well, that has absolutely no applicability to me. So next, you know, and you just kind of have to sift through. Again, that's why I started this webpage, was to hopefully I can distill down 10 years worth of these mistakes and lessons.
What's his
to
website?
No, my website, corbinclay.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah, to just hopefully, you know, spread the good word, and if this can help even one person out there that made the same mistakes I was making, it'll all be worth it. But yeah, you have to acknowledge when something's not working right, you know, and then make the decision to change it, and then hopefully you have the right solution to it lined up.
That's a hell of a headshot. You look great.
Oh, thank you. That was from our engagement photos.
Oh, really?
You didn't get engaged till after you sold the company, right?
I'll say I put on 100 pounds since. So no, it's thank
like
you.
This dude's making 12 grand a year. I'm not marrying him. Fast forward 4 years. All right, maybe I'll consider.
I tell you, my wife and I do talk about that, to be like, man, I wish we'd have known each other years ago, so you could see like the stoicism of showing up and doing the hard work every day. Because, you know, when we met, it was easy. I mean, I was bored out of my mind. It's like, well, everything's working. I built this business. I built these systems. It's all working, and I'm bored out of my mind. And you know, I told her, it's like, I need you to know that I put in lots of overnighters. Like, I need you to know.
You did.
You've been like,
I
I used to be an asshole.
Like, yeah, okay. She's like, wait, aren't you the guy whose team hates him?
So, what now?
So, great question. We're building some cabins in the Colorado mountains that we'll use as vacation rentals.
Who's we?
Me.
Right.
10 years of saying we.
Sure.
My wife and I guess.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, no, so I built this first one, aside from the roof framing, the roof sheathing, and most of the, you know, plumbing, electrical, I built it all myself. 3-bed, 2-bath cabin. We made some changes. This is a 10-12 with a second story, which by yourself is miserable. So we made some changes, took that upstairs bedroom, tacked it onto the side, single story ranch, 512 roof is what we just dried in, what I just dried in. Well, I got the 2 bathroom windows to put in, but that's ready. Plumber starts on Thursday. So the next 9 months or so, we'll be finishing up the second house, and then I have absolutely no interest in ever investing in the stock market. You know, when we sold the business, we put all the money into a money market, but I don't need to be checking my balance hourly because of GameStop or silver all of a sudden being worth something. Like, I'm all set. I actually, when we sold the company, I talked with a financial advisor, and let's just say $1 million for ease of calculation. He's like, say you got $1 million invested with us. How far does that million have to go down until you pick up the phone to call me? And I said, $5,000. And he's like, yeah, stock market's not for you.
Or
that was a great question by him.
Or you're not for me.
That was a solid question.
Brilliant question. And I just started laughing. I forget his name now. I wish I could remember. But anyway, I was just like, that was awesome, dude. And I said, yeah, I didn't want to get into the stock market anyway. But no, I'm interested in income, not necessarily just asset value. So we're trying to build these houses that we will then rent in short-term rentals, and get some income going that way.
Airbnb. We just did that on a podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So that's the next probably 9 months. And I don't know. I'm just, you know, trying to think of big problems that need solved, right? I've got a few in the works, but one is a tech play, and, you know, finding a CTO is a daunting task. And then, you know, writing a 6-figure check to a dev company to build out the tech stack doesn't really get me too excited either. So who knows? But no, you know, I it's hard for me because I feel lazy, even though I'm building 2 houses by myself. I feel lazy and apathetic that I only did this much today, knowing what I used to do. But you know, I think it's important as we get older to focus a bit more on blood pressure and health, and you know, making sure I don't have a heart attack at 45. So I try to have that stuff inform my decisions, but it never works. Every day I my head hits the pillow. I'm just like, man, I could have caulked that shower. I could have flashed that window. It would have just been 10 more minutes, but what are you gonna do? I think we all
make
have
your wife do it.
Nah.
Yeah. You got to fit the bill. Just be like, yeah, I'm just trying to be the asshole.
No, that's my princess. She don't get dirty.
Oh, you guys have kids?
We don't. No.
Who the heck did you wave to when they came in? A
trying.
dog? Who were you waving to when they walked in earlier?
Yeah, it was our little pup. Yeah, her name's Roxy.
I was gonna say it was like a kid, kid type of high. I was like, I hope you don't say hi to your wife like that.
Oh no, yeah, and my wife is also 12 inches tall.
I can't tell. The camera angle looks like you're like sitting up on something. I feel like you're like up top of something.
I'm teetering on top of an armoire. Is that weird?
No, is it pine?
No, it's not in a chair. No, I had a pup for 17 years, and she went absolutely everywhere with me. And man, if you don't have a dog by your side when you're trying to forge your way through these treacherous waters of running a business, you might want to reevaluate. So we said goodbye to her a few years ago, and my wife already had little Roxy when we met, and she and I have become pretty good buddies. So that's my little sweetie.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
John just got a dog.
Dogs, man.
Yeah, I got a pup.
Oh, what kind?
She's a mutt, so we don't know. My wife found her friend to rescue it. Arkansas kill shelter. So it's like they told us lab, but she's got like a little bit of pity in her. You can tell by her ears and her eyes. But she loves to hide under stuff upstairs, and she's completely content sitting underneath the beds.
Okay.
And when we first got her, it was like every time you tell her to sit, she knew how to sit, but it had to be like in her crate, under a chair, under a table. It had to be under something. So you'd say sit, and then she'd bolt under a chair and sit. So
rescues are the best, man, because you say something and you go, oh, that's what that word means.
That's a trigger.
Yeah. Okay.
No, she's good though.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Yeah, dogs are great.
You good, Nick?
I'm good. Yeah, I lost audio there for a second, but I'm good.
Yeah.
How many technical issues?
I think I need a new laptop, guys, or I should just go back to the studio.
Hey, treat yourself, man.
Seriously.
You know what? I'm gonna
move
over that $100,000 and buy a new laptop.
Hey, bud, if I had a fork right now, I'd slam it down and say, hey, that is your money. You earned that.
This is not a beetle kill table, though.
Yeah. Hey, well,
Well, Corbin,
we all work with what we got.
We're going to wrap it up, but I do like how much is left of what they're trying to mill of these forests? That's what I'm kind of curious about.
Quite a bit. It's all about accessibility. So we used the the easy pickings. And again, to answer John's question,
when you were selling the company, like these idiots.
Yeah, I'm like, hey guys, you're gonna be fucked in
none
about
of it
24
left.
months.
You just can't get to it.
No. So we made it very clear the beetle kill is probably going south as a design trend and as accessibility gets more difficult. To answer your question, there's still a whole bunch left. Whether or not it's easy for the loggers to get up there and get it, I don't know. But I had created this entire other program that was B2B custom conference tables about 12 months before I sold the company, knowing that we're going to need something else here. So I had talked to two different office furniture dealerships that we'd done a lot of projects with, and just basically said, again, a good business starts with a customer, right? It doesn't matter what you want. It matters what your customers want or need. So I said, hey, we can build anything. What is it that would make your guys' lives easier? I don't know if the pricing will work. I don't know if the timelines will work, but what do you got? And they said, good Lord, custom conference tables. So I said, okay, what specifically are the problems? And we went through that, and then we created a program to address those issues. And of the 14 dealerships here in the Front Range, all 14 signed up. We'd already done about $500,000 in sales just in that first year on that program. So we basically took that model and said, if this worked in Denver, there's no reason it shouldn't work in Phoenix, Dallas, wherever. But just now you guys need to take what I built and scale it. which is what I was going to do anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't leave them totally high and dry.
Yeah, that was your plan until you realized that you were an asshole.
Come on now.
Tyler, they're gonna ask how much money he has left after selling the company.
That's what I thought he was
Yeah.
going to ask.
Yeah. $28. Hold on.
It's not bad.
$26. And no, I blew it all on GameStop, unfortunately.
Damn.
I went AMC.
No, I hear you. Guys, this was awesome.
Corbin, yeah, I appreciate you being on. And I think it, like I said, we chatted through email, but it's cool to hear your story from furniture maker all the way into building a business, and really about like systems. And like John said, you were so self-aware and able to course correct so many things. And one of the most impressive to me is the being valued at $0 and course correcting that over the course of literally 4 years to be able to sell a company at a profitable margin to
Let's just say 6 million. He won't tell us, so we'll just guess.
retire. Yeah.
And just throw it out there and he can correct us.
For $100 million.
$100 million. No, it's I encourage everybody listening, and you guys as well, really figure out what you're good at and what you suck at. And if you don't have any resources to help you with the things you suck at, fucking find them.
Yeah. Have
Quickly.
some humility.
Have some humility, ask for help. Again, I just started this webpage actually because of this podcast. I thought, well, man, hopefully people will hear this and say, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Please help. So CorbinClay.com, at the bottom, there's a contact me section. If you guys want to critique, like, oh, you shouldn't use water-based, you should just fuck off. I don't need to hear it. I'm done with that. But if you have genuine questions about how to structure your business, how to get over that hump, how to do this and that, absolutely email me. I'd love to help any way I can.
We'll add a link in the description.
And it's not
Oh, right
Clay,
on, cool.
It's not claycorbin.com, because somehow I was like, this doesn't look like it's his webpage.
No, it's Corbin Clay.
Corbin Clay.
It's like, I don't see any real good headshots right now. It's just like random pictures of people.
Tyler, completely back.
No, if I'm able to help even one person out there, navigate the choppy waters even slightly more smoothly and gracefully than I did, I'm all in.
That's kind of you.
You rock,
Awesome.
dude.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Take care. And good luck
Absolutely,
with the
guys.
cabin.
Appreciate the interest.
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll go down
Yeah,
to
right
the
on. Thanks,
podcast.
guys.
It's cool. It's I feel like so many people are in that position and kind of give up on it, where it's like you're being valued at $0, and it's like to go back and course correct, to look at, like you said, John, like data, having that data. And that's your biggest advice to people is like, track things. If you don't know what to track, just track everything, and then you figure out later on what brought value to the next one. And it goes undervalued until it's needed. And thankfully, he was in a position where he had it and was able to, create success out of it.
I think we're gonna be launching my spreadsheet on MT Copeland
Nice.
Really?
when we do our class.
I was trying to get some numbers for you guys, but he wasn't budging.
He wasn't.
Tried
Well,
to
for those
slip
that, John,
slip it in when he wasn't paying attention, catch him off guard.
John, you kind of mentioned it, but MT Copeland, if any of you guys are listening and haven't checked it out, a few of us are going to be partnering with MT Copeland. You can find him on Instagram, but Ken DeCoste has launched his cabinet making video. Masterclass, yeah. So if you guys are interested in getting into cabinet making, and there's a handful of other courses on there too, but I'm going to promote my boy.
Ellie the Apprentice. She launched hers as well.
Yeah.
They did a nice job.
Oh, the production's
Professional.
Yeah.
Like the shop was littered with cameras. I was jealous. Doug, like I could tell Doug hung out just to check it out.
I'm sure he did.
And I'm like, how much is this all this guy? Like, is this something we're gonna have? And he's looking at me like, no, probably not.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know when they're gonna.
Yeah, I'm excited.
book
I'm
our
excited
classes.
to see how it as you say, shakes out. All right, guys. Well, you know where to find us. We'll see you guys on Instagram. If you have any feedback, make sure you fill out that Survey Monkey. And
107 surveys completed to date.
that's crazy. If you guys have good feedback, make sure you hit us up on iTunes. Keep us in the top ranking construction podcast. And
Any new reviews?
I didn't check. Whoa, hold on.
That and I had a note, like, did we give up on Mike Rowe? Are we putting MC Nation still after them? Because the shirts are supposed to come in from.
All right, so we have a lead on Mike Rowe. The three of us need to put together a letter for him. So that's in our court right now.
Like handwritten, like cursive? Like, does it have to be
not
stamped and delivered by horse?
They got rid of cursive.
Did they?
Yes. Yeah, we got a handful.
843 reviews. I remember we used to try and get 500.
We got a new one. So I thought the podcast was excellent as a first-time listener. It was very informative, and I appreciate the guys were focused more on facts and real-time experiences. As an expanded interior designer in the Southeast, I can relate to all of your comments, and I'm looking forward to listening to some past episodes. Eddie Ryder in North Carolina.
Do you think Corbin used tradesperson because of that other review?
I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Instead of saying like craftsman, he's saying like craftsperson.
We got the one that's it. Well, I thought about that a lot. We got a 1-star review about
a couple weeks back,
it being called craftsman rather than craftspeople. And I thought
I
about
it's like
that.
human.
But hold on. It's about us.
Yeah, that's
We're the modern craftsmen. We're
it's
three
also
men.
stupid. You can go find something else to argue about.
Yeah, we can argue, but let's just be real here. The facts are it's three dudes talking on a podcast having therapy sessions.
Yeah.
This isn't about like all of the people in the world. I would welcome a modern craftspeople or craftswoman podcast, but it's the three dudes. So
the easiest thing to do to add like an asterisk, or we have to change it to an E.
Well, I think of it like human, like everyone's human, and now we're craftsmen.
I mean, I think it's bogus.
That's how
I think that's different.
Is it? Come on, give it to me.
Human.
I think it's a bogus review. It's from Linda F. Bird. So, Linda
can take a hike.
Yeah.
Linda,
All right,
send your
guys.
info. We'll jump up. We'll get you a bonus.
Linda, we'll give you a shirt.
Yeah. Yes. Send us your email.
We'll cross it out and just put craftsman.
We'll make a custom one.
Craftsperson.
All right, guys. This podcast, as always, is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Considering a painted wood siding on your next project because you love that look, so do we. Let us show you why architects, builders, and homeowners are switching to Duration for that same great look, but with a much faster install and far superior performance. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.